save business time and money. That's why we are pledging to reduce the administrative burdens on business by 25%, and digital will play a key role in it.
Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, yet research shows that the average small business cannot start its real work until 2:36 p.m. on a Wednesday because of the time lost to administrative tasks. My own experience is that business owners need to engage regularly with various departments and agencies in all manner for all manner of reasons, and the need to prove identity can be a time-consuming task. So will the Minister consider introducing a unique business passport, or effectively a unique business digital ID for the business to cut administrative burden and free up small businesses to deliver growth?
I'm very grateful for his question. He and I share a zeal for using digital to transform the relationship between government and those who use services. When I was the DSIT Secretary of State, I was very proud to work with the GDS team and see how they're transforming the ability for individuals to start interacting with government. We need to have the same zeal for how businesses interact too, and I can assure him that there is a programme of work with my department to make sure that that is the case.
Number 2, please, Mr. Speaker.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the keen interest my honourable friend has shown on this issue. I and my officials have regular discussions with DCMS, including on the publication of the draft secondary ticketing bill in the second session. Consumer enforcement is a key strand of this work, and the CMA is the UK's main consumer enforcer. As such, we have naturally discussed their important role in the ticketing ecosystem and consumer protection more broadly. In addition, last week, the Government introduced the Sporting Events Bill. This will create a criminal offence for the unauthorised resale of tickets for major sporting events that meet the necessary conditions in the bill.
Dr. Rupert.
Ending ticketing scams was a manifesto pledge prompted by the Oasis surge pricing scandal, but it only appears in draft form in this King's speech. And peak gig-going season, maybe even for you, Mr. Speaker, with your Motown habit, is upon us, as is a cost of living crisis. So would ministers, we all know about it and love you for it, Mr. Speaker. So I wondered if ministers would meet, indeed, reflections of you. So would ministers meet with me to discuss the solution, my meticulously researched, widely backed ballot bill from 2024. It's ready to go, ready-made. It deals with this and banning the bots who hog tickets for resale so that we can stop this rip-off without any delay.
We got them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable friend and for her work on this issue. I know it's been close to her heart for many years, and that's why we've committed to publishing a draft secondary ticketing bill as set out in the background to the King's speech. This shows our continued commitment on this issue, and we are pressing ahead on work which will allow us to legislate as soon as parliamentary time allows. The benefit of the draft bill will allow scrutiny from parliamentarians and sector experts to ensure that we are getting the approach right, and I thank her for it and hope she can hear my commitment to it today. Thank you.
Chris Law.
Speaker, as artists and songwriters gather today for the Ivor Novello Awards, fans across the country have still been ripped off by these ticket touts, despite the Prime Minister's response to that, and I quote, as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, it's incredibly disappointing the Government has proposed only a draft ticket tout ban bill in the King's speech. Does the Secretary of State accept any further delay simply benefits these touts and secondary ticketing platforms? And will they actually give us a date when there will be proper legislation brought forward to protect fans?
I thank the honourable member for his question. He will know since the Government published its response to the consultation on the resale of live event tickets, we've been working tirelessly to prepare new measures exactly to what his point, to tackle those ticket touts who take advantage of real fans wanting to see their favourite bands and artists, and that's why the next step is to introduce a draft bill in this parliamentary session that will enable the parliamentary scrutiny and will allow us to draw up the expertise of key stakeholders to ensure that our legislation is truly effective and enforceable, because that well-functioning ticket resale market can play such an important role for those who can't attend an event to give the opportunity to go somewhere else in their place.
That's a bun.
Question number 3, Mr. Speaker.
So stay.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Minister for Small Business and Economic Transformation met with the Royal Mail's Chief Executive on the 12th of May to discuss its service improvement plan. I know that the honourable lady my honourable friend has been campaigning for issues in her own constituency vigorously, and they have been heard loud and clear. Royal Mail have told my department the Middleton delivery office in her constituency is fully staffed and delivers to most addresses 6 days a week. I know that that is something that she will be scrutinising and might well have something to say a bit more now.
Councillor Blunt.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Last week I held a meeting at the fantastic Burnside Community Centre on Langley with my constituents and representatives from Royal Mail, and constituents who have had to deal with a substandard postal service with crucial correspondence arriving weeks late, if at all. To many people in Hayward and Middleton North, this is a direct result of a national asset being sold off to a private company focused on profit rather than quality of service. If this level of service continues, what further options is the Minister currently considering to hold Royal Mail to account, and where necessary, so the Government can step in and enforce the changes my constituents need to see? Thank you.
I said, Mr Speaker, that she was a great advocate for her residents on this issue, and of course she's proving so once again. I can reassure her that the Government has secured a commitment from Royal Mail's owners to preventing dividends until service levels improve, a tangible impact on the business unless service levels do improve. Now also, I've been involved in discussions with the Royal Mail's owner and the CWU, the unions, to get a deal that can start working on the universal service offering and modernisation reform package for the company, but also one that tackles pay equalisation. They have reached a deal. That deal is now out to CWU members, and I hope that that will be the foundation for real improvement into the long term and shows an active industrial strategy on behalf of this government that gets things done.
Chris Hinchcliffe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Question number 4.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Good morning. We've just heard from the Secretary of State about our active industrial strategy, and in fact, what a timely moment to ask this question, because we're 1 year on from our industrial strategy. We've announced our British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme, expanding the scope of that scheme to support 10,000 businesses with their energy costs, a £500 million sovereign AI fund, and of course, the creation of 19 new technical excellence colleges, giving opportunities for young people across the country.
Chris Hinchcliffe.
Mr Speaker, if climate breakdown accelerates, many of the international supply chains we've relied upon for essential goods and resources for far too long will cease to exist. We are sleepwalking towards a situation in which this country can no longer guarantee the basic needs of its people. And at that point, no amount of AI slop or casino capitalism will be an alternative for actually making things. So before ecological collapse makes it too late, will ministers use their industrial strategy to pivot our economy back to producing more of the essentials we use in our daily lives?
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My honourable friend knows that when he talks about reindustrialisation and improving the manufacturing base of this economy, he finds a very sympathetic ear in me. And certainly we have all seen over the course of the last few years through multiple crises how the resilience of global supply chains has been reduced. So I would say to him that increasing our share of our economy that is dedicated to manufacturing will serve the ecological aims that he has said. It will improve our national resilience and also provide good, well-paid, high-productivity manufacturing jobs in our industrial heartlands across the whole of the country.
Mr Carmichael.
Mr Speaker, well, the largest sector of that manufacturing base is food manufacturing, but that was deliberately left out of the industrial strategy. As a consequence, food manufacturing is now facing rising input costs, especially energy, and they are not able to get the assistance that the Minister just referred to. The Food and Drink Federation think that food price inflation could get to 9 or 10% this year. With the benefit of hindsight, was it possibly a mistake to exclude manufacturing of food from the industrial strategy?
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. So at the time that the industrial strategy was established, the Government looked very carefully in selecting the sectors to select those that had the greatest growth potential for the economy. But we were also extremely clear to communicate that that does not mean that sectors that were not identified for high growth potential were not important. Quite the contrary. Our food manufacturing sector is incredibly important. The government is acutely aware of the issues around food prices, and I believe there is a statement from the Chancellor of the Exchequer later today, and she may well have more to say on that subject.
Sarah Coombs, is there anything left to say?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The future of the car industry is in electric and automated vehicles, and the West Midlands in the UK has always been a leader in car manufacturing across the world. So can the Minister say more about what we are doing to protect this industry, make sure the future of this industry lies in the UK?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So my honourable friend is right. Automotive manufacturing is a key part of our advanced manufacturing sector, and I know she's done a huge amount here in the House to champion that sector from her area nationally. One of the areas that we are focusing on now, of course, is supporting that sector with the development of new technology, such as autonomous vehicles. The Secretary of State last week signed an MOU with Wave Industries, and we are determined that the UK will become Europe's first market for digital driving services, driving the market and also driving our automotive industry.
Patrick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency of Runcorn and Helsby, I have one of the last remaining chlorine production sites in Vinova. On a recent visit, they told me their future is uncertain due to production costs. It's a high energy intense industry. Will he agree with me that it's strategically critical that the UK has its own chlorine production, and will he meet with me to discuss the future of this site?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I commend the Honourable Lady for championing the chemicals sector here in the House. It is a sector that I am extremely concerned about because, as the Honourable Lady says, it is vital to the UK economy, including chlorine, as she said. This government has taken action through our industrial strategy also to focus on heavy industry and energy-intensive industries, and I believe I might have an opportunity later today to speak with her if that would be of interest.
Davis, Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government's industrial strategy rightly states that improving skills within the construction sector is essential to keeping our country building. In fact, on page 44 of their strategy, there is a commitment to invest £625 million to train 60,000 more skilled workers. It's been 1 year since publication, so how many more skilled workers have entered the construction workforce as a result of this commitment?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Gentleman is quite right to point out the importance of construction skills. In fact, on a recent visit in East London to a construction skills academy, I had the opportunity to do a bit of tiling myself, which has come in quite handy at home, actually, and also to talk to some of the young people there who realise that they are developing skills for life. And the government is incredibly committed to that. And the Honourable Gentleman, he may have missed it, but he'd be pleased to know that the government is setting up has announced 5 new technical excellence colleges to help young people to get those skills for life in the construction sector.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful for the update on his tiling skills, but I didn't quite hear a number as to how he's making progress on the £625 million commitment. Perhaps he can write to me on how they are making progress on that. But one of the existing schemes to support training is the Construction Industry Training Board. But many industry leaders believe that it's no longer working, it's no longer delivering. Construction firms are facing significant bills as a direct result of the levy, all while the CITB is reducing the training provision. So what is the Minister's view of the CITB, and has he engaged with the construction industry to discuss it?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Yes, indeed, I engage with the construction industry extremely regularly as the co-chair of the Construction Leadership Council. And skills, along with health and safety, is absolutely at the top of our agenda. And certainly the views of the construction industry on the Construction Industry Training Board, they are discussed there and decided there by the industry.
So, Alder Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Government announced their intention within the industrial strategy to use the government's procurement power to shape markets for innovation in the longer term. But tech startups in my constituency complain that the process of getting government contracts is slow, risk-averse and structurally biased in its financial viability tests and paperwork requirements towards incumbents and US suppliers. As one of them put it to me, no one gets sacked for buying IBM. This surely prevents the government from achieving its goal of greater innovation. So can the Minister tell me what conversations he is having with his Cabinet Office counterparts to ensure that our ambitious homegrown SMEs are not being squeezed out of the competition for public contracts that could provide these firms with valuable growth opportunities and the innovation that our economy and public services so badly need?
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. She raises an extremely important point. Government procurement can, of course, be an important lever for growing our own economy. And whereas previous governments used the fig leaf of being in the EU as an excuse to buy things from overseas simply because they were a penny cheaper, this government is committed to ensuring that as much as possible of UK taxpayers' money is spent in the UK. She asks what discussions I'm having with Cabinet Office colleagues. I'm having discussions with Cabinet Office colleagues, colleagues in the Home Department, in the Ministry of Defence, and in fact across government, because there is a commitment amongst ministers to ensure that government procurement is targeted at British companies. And my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, who is sat behind me, has made a strong commitment as well to reduce regulation and bureaucracy so that we can ensure that these contracts are awarded more efficiently and more easily to small businesses in the UK.
Number 5, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Pubs like the Crown and the Running Horse in the Honourable Member's constituency are a real asset, bringing people together and supporting community life. They are now benefiting from a 15% reduction on their business rates bill, with bills frozen in real terms for a further 2 years. Around 3/4 of pubs will see their bills stay the same or fall, saving the average pub around £1,650 this year. And going even further, the government are launching a review of how pubs are valued for business rates. The Hospitality Support Fund too has been increased to £10 million to help support businesses, including pubs, to invest, grow and remain resilient.
Pubs in my constituency will respond to that answer with disbelief. There are currently 74 pubs at the last count. That may be an inaccurate figure now, it could have dropped. They employ roughly 2,000 people, and then on top of that, there's cafes like the Hayden Tea Rooms. They tell me that they're being crucified by the government's policy of the jobs tax, the removal of business rates relief, and the business rates revaluation. And now, to top it off, Mr Speaker, there's talk of an overnight levy for those pubs with rooms. Why does the government not want pubs and hospitality to thrive in Broadland and Fakenham?
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for his question. We absolutely want pubs in our hospitality sector to thrive. They are the backbone of our communities and often that first job for people, and that's why they are so vital to our high streets and to his constituency and to our local communities. Pubs in particular, as he will know, have been under huge pressure over recent years. Their numbers have fallen by nearly 7,000 since 2010, a roughly 15% reduction and amongst the highest overall across hospitality. That's why since April, every pub and live music venue will get 15% of its new business rates bill, on top of the support announced at the budget. And we know we continuously need to support our pubs and the wider industry. It's why I work really closely with the Hospitality Sector Council, with publicans and pubs all across the country to understand how we can better support them, and will continue to do so.
Right, let us move on to Lawrence Turner.
6, please, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for his question. As an advocate for this legislation long before the Act was introduced here in this House last year, I know how passionate he is about our determination to our wider Make Work Pay agenda, which I of course share. The Employment Rights Act 2025 is bringing employment rights legislation into the 21st century. We have already repealed burdensome trade union legislation, strengthened statutory sick pay, introduced day one rights to paternity leave and launched the Fair Work Agency. We are implementing the Act over a 2-year period and are consulting widely with business organisations, trade unions and civil society to ensure that we get the details right and provide the support people need.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I draw attention to my membership of GMB and Unite Trade Unions, and I welcome and acknowledge the Minister's firm commitment to this area. The Department recently published its response to the Trade Union Right of Access consultation. Capping fines at £500,000 equates to a potential liability for Amazon's warehousing operations of 0.02% of operating profits, but up to 20% of the surplus of the medium-sized trade unions. We must get this right. How does disproportionate liability achieve the government's aims of creating a workable right in those minority cases of very well-resourced and hostile employers?
The legal framework for the right of access in the Employment Rights Act 2025 provides an enforcement mechanism that applies to all parties involved in an access agreement. The government is clear that the enforcement mechanism must be fair, proportionate and adaptable, and we've set out factors the CAC must consider when setting the value of penalties, acknowledging that some breaches will have a greater impact than others. These factors will include the gravity of the breach, the number of workers affected by it and the size and resources of the liable party. The government believes that the level of penalty fines that CAC may impose must reflect that seriousness of the breach.
James Wilde.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unemployment is rising, with youth unemployment now at 16%, and the Jobs Tax and the Employment Act are destroying opportunities. So shouldn't ministers listen to the Chief Executive of M&S, who said instead of trying to run businesses, the government should understand businesses better? And will they reduce the burden of regulation and tax rather than continuing to increase it?
Economic growth, inflation down.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member will know the stats and the results that we've seen in the economy this year, particularly on growth. But I am glad he references youth unemployment today. It's a long-term problem that we've seen in the UK. Young people not in education, employment or training went up by 250,000 in the last 3 years of the previous government. It is a long-term problem, that's why we're taking it very seriously. He'll know our announcements around the Youth Guarantee to provide those hiring incentives to foundational apprenticeships, especially in retail and hospitality, and we all know the importance of that. And overall, employment levels are a healthy level, but we are not complacent. We know there's more we need to do to work with employers to support them. That's why, for example, the £2.5 billion that we're creating to help create over 500,000 opportunities for young people to earn or learn by giving those grants to businesses are really important.
Dame Harriet Baldwin, Shadow Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the Employment Rights Act is one of the reasons that is given for 1 in 8 business leaders considering leaving Britain. And indeed, 30% of the Sunday Times rich list has already fled this high-tax socialist government. The family business tax is another. Will the Minister please lobby the Chancellor for another U-turn, this time adopting our policy of scrapping the family business tax?
This government is absolutely clear that economic growth is a top priority. We are also absolutely clear that you cannot build a strong economy and a strong foundation of our economy with people in insecure work. That's why this legislation is so important. We are proud to bring it forward. We're also proud to work with businesses across the country on it and with our trade union partners and partners across the country, working together that we can build that economy that works for working people to reverse the damages that their party did under government and make sure the economy works in the interests for everybody.
Question number 7, sir.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ensuring business support takes account of rural needs is incredibly important for this government. Around 1.1 in 6 people live in rural areas in England, with over 520,000 businesses contributing £259 billion to the English economy.
I thank the Secretary of State for his response, but I'd like to ask him about my constituent Jason, who runs the cider barn in the village of Draycote, just outside Cheddar, a fantastic local venue which hosts live music and serves, unsurprisingly, really good cider, local cider and ales. Jason was rocked by this year's massive increase in business rates, which have jumped from £100 a month to £600 a month. I shouldn't have to explain this is a very significant rise in his operating costs. This kind of shock makes it so hard for micro and small businesses to survive, let alone to thrive. Given how important the cider barn is to the local community, what can the Minister say, and importantly do, to assure small businesses just like Jason's that they will be supported by this government?
I'm very grateful to the Honourable Lady for her question. The sector that he is in, obviously hospitality and being in a rural area, means that he requires multiple areas of support from this government for which he is getting. Now, when it comes to the business rates, we have permanently lowered the multipliers for eligible retail, hospitality and leisure properties. That's worth nearly £1 billion and benefiting over 750,000 businesses. Just this week, because I imagine he will fall into the small business definition, Just this week, we've introduced legislation that will tackle late payments for small businesses. That will inject another £11 billion into the economy. This is a government that is on the side of businesses, whether they are in urban or rural areas, whether they are large or small.
Muraz Hamilton, Mr. Speaker. Over 95% of Cornish businesses are small or micro businesses. We're a hotbed of innovation and agility. But these Cornish businesses have been supported over the last 10 years with EU Objective 1 funding and then shared prosperity funding, both of which have ended, and there's zero chance of Cornwall joining an English mayoral combined authority. So can the Minister outline how we can protect and develop our innovative and agile micro and small businesses?
I'm extremely grateful. He's describing businesses that are the lifeblood of the British economy. The innovation that flows from it is vitally important. DEFRA's Rural Task Force is taking a strategic view of the challenges faced by businesses in rural areas. I imagine that the one that he mentions will be in scope of that. Business Growth Service also includes growth hubs, which are across the UK and supporting businesses in rural areas so that they can get the growth into their business that they need.
Julian Smith.
Question number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his question. The government's call for evidence on the opt-out collective actions regime closed in October of last year, with almost 100 responses received. I welcome the input stakeholders have provided, and we are committed to economic growth and robust competition enforcement, including private enforcement. It's good for business, it's good for consumers and the economy. A consultation will be published as soon as possible, and my officials will be happy to work with the Honourable Gentleman to discuss this work further.
So, Julian?
I think for that answer, I think it's really important, as she said, that the collective regime continues. We've got a great reputation globally for our opt-out regime. Just as follow-up, the litigation finance industry is vital to supporting claims from consumers. The government said last year that it would proceed with a bill to restore a legal issue following the Packard judgment. Does she have an update on when that bill will come forward? Because it wasn't in the King's speech.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his question again, and particularly with the PACAR review, these are complex issues, as he knows, and it's important that we take the time needed to get them right. Great care is being taken to ensure proposals for the opt-out collective actions balance the need to preserve a route to redress with consumers while ensuring a proportionate regime for business. And as I said in my previous answer, we're really happy to discuss with officials further.
Ben Maguire.
Question number 9, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are helping SMEs do more trade with European countries by taking down tariff and other trade barriers in our EU-UK summit, reducing red tape in individual countries, enabling easier business travel and the mutual recognition of professional qualifications both across the EU and bilaterally, and I look forward to him welcoming that.
Maguire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I always welcome the cutting of red tape, and I await the details excitedly. My North Cornwall constituent, Hannah Willow, runs 2 art businesses. Prior to Brexit, around 30% of her sales were to customers in Europe. This has now fallen to 10%. And as a result of recent tariffs on trade, her exports to the US have also declined by 20%. Now, adding insult to injury, the de minimis threshold will be removed from the 1st of July this year. This means items valued under €150 entering the EU will no longer be exempt from customs duty and will incur a flat €3 fee per item. Will the government take up the Liberal Democrats' call to negotiate a bespoke customs union and finally put our small businesses back at the heart of our economy where they belong?
No, I'm not going to take any ideas from the Lib Dems on this, I'm afraid. I think I could pretty much unite the House in that matter. But what I do want to do, I mean, one of the things that I'm very keen is that we do maintain our position as the 2nd largest art market in the world. That means that we do have to negotiate better agreements, including with the European Union. That's one of the things that we're doing at the moment. He makes a fair point about the de minimis rule. But I noticed that other businesses in his constituency are doing well. Tarquin's Cornish gin is doing well. It's been winning awards in the United States of America and elsewhere. Best gin in the world, I understand. And of course, the work that we're doing on critical minerals with my honourable friend is bound to benefit Cornish lithium. We're very keen to make sure that we have that capacity in the UK and not just being processed in other parts of the world.
Boris Curtis.
Mr. Speaker. Question number 10, please.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With your permission, I will answer questions 10 and 16 together. Since publishing our steel strategy on the 19th of March, we published provisional product scope and quota volumes for the new steel trade measures, further reduced electricity prices for steel companies from the 1st of April through our network charging compensation scheme uplift, confirmed some steel companies will be part of the British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme, announced new transparency requirements on the origin of steel in public procurement, set up a cross-government working group on scrap, and introduced today the Steel Industry Nationalisation Bill.
Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for that very helpful answer. Last week, Seven Global announced a £100 million investment into Seven Steel UK in Cardiff, a site I recently visited. So does the government agree that this investment shows that our plan to prioritise a modern steel strategy is paying off for jobs and growth, whilst putting working people in Wales and the UK first?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do indeed agree. The £100 million investment from Seven Steel is welcome news. But I met with the owners of that business and they told me that they were only able to release that investment because of the confidence they had in the government's approach following the publication of our steel strategy, a direct correlation between government action and £100 million worth of investment in Cardiff. I know my honourable friend has been a strong advocate of the steel industry, and there is an opportunity for members of the House to decide whether they are on the side of the steel industry or not later today. And so I encourage the opposition. I know it's difficult when there's a bill with the word nationalisation in it, but please put your ideology aside just for a moment and get behind the steel industry this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I put on record my thanks to ministers and the department for their ongoing excellent engagement on the steel strategy with me and my local businesses. But many of the downstream businesses in my Stourbridge constituency currently import products including zero carbon steel which aren't currently produced in the UK. So what steps is he taking to ensure that businesses like mine are not unfairly disadvantaged by the quotas and tariffs being introduced under the steel strategy in a few weeks' time?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my honourable friend, and I also thank her for raising particularly the issues with businesses in Stourbridge when we met earlier this week as well, and I'm happy to continue to work with her on that. The measures that we've introduced, primarily to protect the UK steel industry, are targeted at those steels which are made or can be made in the UK. There are sometimes difficulties where a product code covers multiple steel grades, but that's what the quota system is intended to deal with. And of course, there is a review in 12 months' time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further to the question from the Honourable Lady and my question to the Prime Minister yesterday, I'm sure the Minister is aware that lots of businesses, manufacturing businesses, are frankly screaming about the damage that these tariffs are going to do in 5 weeks' time. Can I ask him please to consider an extension of the transition period to 2 years to allow three things to happen? One, for UK steel capacity to grow to cover the gap. Two, for quotas to be set correctly so that UK businesses are not disadvantaged in the absence of UK production capacity, but also three, so that it can work out how it can be fair that somebody importing steel into the UK to produce a product pays tariffs, but somebody importing a finished product from overseas, made from the same steel, does not face tariffs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I mean, first of all, I'd like to thank the Right Honourable Gentleman for his comment. I believe that we've had representation from Standard Stairlift, which is a company in his constituency. First of all, I think it's important to say that the government takes action like this reluctantly, but ultimately there are distortions in the market around steel, and the EU having taken action themselves would lead to the UK becoming a dumping ground for cheap steel flooding in from overseas. So we've taken a very carefully balanced approach. We've consulted very carefully with the industry, and I'm continuing to receive representations. But as I said, there is an opportunity for a review of the measures in 12 months' time.
Victoria Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I gently but urgently reiterate actually the questions from the last two honourable members, because I have Sam, a constituent in one of my constituents, has raised dynamic metals. He has an independent British supplier working on specialised steel metals for aerospace, motorsports, industries that we absolutely have to be championing in this country. From the 1st of July, his business will see an import go from 0 to over £3 million. That is pretty much insurmountable, and the impact that will have on industries that we must champion is potentially awful. So will the Minister please consider actually the questions of the previous members, but also looking at extending that deadline and meeting with my constituents, and it seems many others, to understand the full impact of this, so that we can really stand up for our industries and support our steel partners as well.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I'm not familiar with the situation with dynamic metals, but having a discussion on the front bench there with my right honourable friend, the Minister for Trade, I'd be very grateful if she would write to him, and he will look very carefully at the matter that she's raised.
Minister Dame Harriet Baldwin.
Yeah, I'm going to carry on the same theme because it is very clear from all sides that there are real issues about this element of the steel strategy, which is the imposition of a 50% tariff on the 1st of July. It is affecting manufacturing businesses up and down this country. It is being done in a way that is threatening not only jobs in this country, manufacturing jobs in this country, but it is being done in a way that is going to increase inflationary pressures. So can the Minister tell the House what impact assessment he has done on the effect on inflation and the effect on jobs of these measures?
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I mean, I would sort of reiterate the point that this is the action that this government's taken here has been to correct an issue in the market. We have obviously taken very wide representation. In fact, we amended the list as a result of some of that representation. But the point that she's making about inflation goes exactly back to the point that I made earlier before. We cannot be in a position where we say that as a country we are prepared to buy the cheapest thing, wherever it is made in the world, to the sacrifice of our own industry, and allow foreign governments' industrial policies to drive our own industrial policy. And that's why we have taken this action, similar action to that was taken by the EU as well. This comes down to a question of whose side are you on? Are you on the side of British industry, like the government, or are you on the side of overseas industry, which seems to be the case, being prosecuted by the opposition?
Bradley Thomas.
Number 11, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Pubs in Bromsgrove are vital to the local economy, supporting jobs and bringing communities together. I welcome success stories such as the Gate at Bourneheath, named Bromsgrove, and the Villages Pub of the Year 2026, highlighting the strength of the sector. The Government is committed to backing pubs, with permanently lower business rates for eligible retail, hospitality and leisure properties, and additional 15% relief for pubs. We've also significantly increased the Hospitality Support Fund to £10 million to help businesses invest, grow and remain resilient. And that fund will help over 1,000 pubs to diversify their business models, improve efficiency and productivity in the sector, and support people who are furthest from the labour market to move into jobs in hospitality.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Minister for her response, but I'm afraid the picture that she paints is not one that pubs across my constituency will recognise. A typical pub in my constituency is paying around £2,500 in additional cost per month compared to 2 years ago because of a rise in energy costs, employment costs and business rates. So if the Minister is serious about supporting the hospitality sector, will the government look at a permanent cut to business rates for pubs and exempt pubs with accommodation from the overnight levy?
I thank the honourable member for his question, and do understand that rising energy prices and the wider supply chain effects can place particular strain on sectors, particularly pubs and the wider hospitality sector, who often quite rely on that discretionary spending and operate on tight margins. I've met with lots of them over recent weeks and know that the current situation, especially in Iran on energy prices, are sort of providing a lot of concern for businesses up and down the country. We are considering carefully across government as part of our ongoing assessment of economic conditions and support mechanisms, because we absolutely want to support our pubs and the hospitality sector, who are absolutely vital to our local communities and high streets, and that's why providing that economic stability that we've shown this year to ensure that the economy can keep growing, wages can rise and people can have that money to spend to support our pubs and our hospitality sector is vital.
Sir John Whitty.
Number 12.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The government recognises the vital role hospitality plays in keeping high streets vibrant, driving footfall, supporting local jobs and sustaining town centre services. We know many businesses, including the Malden Swan Hotel, Bar and Grill, are still facing real pressures, which is why we have delivered permanently lower business rates for over 750,000 retail, hospitality and leisure properties, alongside a £4.3 billion support package, including transitional relief, helping firms remain on the high street, invest and grow. And later this year, we'll bring forward a new high street strategy developed with businesses to support regeneration and help town centres thrive.
Sir John Whittinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But despite what the Minister says, hospitality businesses in my constituency, like those in the constituencies of my honourable friends, are reeling under the impact of higher energy costs, increased national insurance contributions and business rates. And they are making clear that any further increase, they will simply not survive. So why is the government pressing ahead now with another tax in the form of the overnight visitor levy? And will she talk to businesses before proceeding with that?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. He will know that the tax in particular is down to mayoral authorities, and they will work really closely with businesses and stakeholders in making that decision. But here is an important point. I do recognise the significant pressures that are facing pubs, hospitality and breweries who are facing those sustained cost increases. We're closely monitoring the potential impact of disruption of trade and the wider economy, because our priority is to keep prices down for households and for businesses. That's why it will build on our work going forwards to cut energy bills and crack down on unfair profiteering, which our new framework that we've announced, which will help regulators spot trouble early and protect consumers and work with businesses on that. And we're absolutely committed to, understand and recognise the pressures, and that's why going forwards we work with them really closely to support them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week I hosted the British Beer and Pub Association in Parliament. They have more than 20,000 members across the country, including Cameron's Brewery in Hartlepool. Among the many issues they raised with me was this summer's Football World Cup. In other parts of the UK, late licences are being permitted for all games, but in England and Wales it's only for England and Scotland games. Will my honourable friend make representations to the responsible ministerial colleagues to allow licences for all games, to back our pubs and celebrate this festival of football?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for his question and for raising such an important point today. I'm absolutely looking forward to getting out to the pub and supporting England in the World Cup going forwards, and those licensing points that he's referenced today are really important, and we'll work closely with colleagues across government on that, and thank you for raising it.
We come to topicals. Harriet Cross. Jerome Mayu.
Question. Thank you so much.
Question number one.
Number two.
Secretary of State.
I'm very grateful, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, and I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman as well for not ruining my moment to shine. Mr. Speaker, I told the House that I would be an activist, interventionist champion for business. Later today, I am very pleased to say that the Chancellor will announce a funding for two of our foundational sectors, ceramics and chemicals. She will be setting out in more detail to the House shortly, but I can say that we are working with industry and experts to provide the targeted intervention that the sector needs. Today's business, Mr. Speaker, tells the story. This government stands with British business to create the resilient, growing economy that this country deserves.
Jerome Mayu.
That economy needs access to oil. Last October, the government announced that it was going to sanction Russian oil and jet fuel. And yesterday, they decided not to, on the same day that they banned new drilling in the North Sea. So why does the government support Putin's Russian oil and not our UK oil?
The thing about a Labrador, when it's got hold of the wrong end of the stick, is it's very difficult to get that stick back off. The truth is, a lot of honourable members have got the wrong end of the stick about what we're doing. We are increasing the sanctions on Russian oil. Up until now, it's been perfectly possible to bring Russian oil products into the UK, processed elsewhere, without any impediment whatsoever. It's absolutely right that we are bringing that to an end.
Mr. Speaker, Carlisle is a great city. It is not, however, Leeds or Newcastle or indeed Manchester. The challenges hospitality businesses face in constituencies like mine are different. In the last couple of months, I have met with 2 such businesses. One, a pub that has doubled its turnover in the last 4 years, still cannot turn a profit, and another business offering fine dining has only been able to retain a full complement of kitchen staff because their world-leading chef has taken a pay cut. Will the Minister set out how the action the government is taking will help businesses in constituencies like mine, and will she meet with me to discuss the particular challenges?
Order. We are on topicals, please. I've got to get other people in. I'm sure the Minister will have got it.
Mr Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for her question. We recognise the vital contribution of hospitality businesses to the UK, including pubs in Carlisle, in supporting local employment, sustaining high streets and communities and playing that really important role in cultural and social fabric. I'm always delighted to meet with my honourable friend.
Andrew Griffiths, Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. First, may I congratulate the government benches on securing the Gulf Cooperation Council. Success has many authors, and ministers on both sides of the House have been part of these negotiations. But a win is a win, and these are our historical friends and allies, and this is part of a growth agenda. With summer approaching, young people graduating, as a direct result of this government's choices, the ONS reported this week that 1 in 6 young people are looking for a job but can't find them. Sectors like retail and hospitality are shedding jobs by the thousand. Will the Secretary of State now finally accept that, well-intentioned or otherwise, the government's got it wrong?
Well, it speaks for itself when the opposition is trying to take credit for government's achievements. It shows just how good this government actually is. But I am grateful for his warm words about the GCC deal. A lot of work went into it, and of course, when we came into office, we were practically starting from the start line because we were so close to it at that moment in time. I'm just going to be really upfront about youth unemployment. This is an issue that really faces most communities in our country, and it's something that we should have much more cross-party support on. I will say this in the interests of an olive branch. As somebody who had a challenging pathway through education into employment myself, I recognise that. But the opposition must admit also, in the 3 years before they left office, youth unemployment went up by 250,000. So yes, we will work together, but it does.
Secretary of State, it applies to you as well as backbenchers, because I'm trying to help your backbenchers get the questions in. We'll hear a very quick question now from Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Secretary of State for his answer. Look, I hope he would agree on a cross-party basis with the Tony Blair Institute, who said the UK must restore dynamism in its labour market rather than impose restrictions like the Employment Rights Act. So could the Secretary of State, who's a good man, at least promise to me that if he gets to serve as a Chancellor in a government led by his friend, the member for Ilford North, he will use that chance to change the government's approach?
Dynamism is increasing in our economy, which is why we have so much growth in our economy that they failed to deliver over their 14 years. When it comes to young people in particular, we have the Youth Guarantee, a 6-month funded programme placement that gives the rich environment that will give those kids who have been put out of work a lot of the time by their government when they were in, back into work, and there sustainably.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Bradford is a proud multicultural city, and we celebrate all the good that diversity brings. We speak over 100 languages. I'm sure you will agree, Mr Speaker, that we have the best cuisine in the country. We hosted an amazing City of Culture last year. We have one of the youngest populations in the country and one of the highest business start-up rates. So can I ask the Minister what further steps this government is doing to provide boost our economic growth, provide support for our young people and in particular business start-ups?
I'm very grateful. Of course, just last year I was in his neck of the woods for the Investment Summit, unleashing further billions into his part of the country. We are also, I know the automotive sector is incredibly important to him. We are pledged to get back to the levels of automotive output that the Tories halved. When we get back to that point, you will see a flourishing, booming industry with the jobs that follow.
only Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Speaker, according to reports in both the FT and the Times, the government has asked supermarket retailers to reduce the prices of essential food items like milk, bread and eggs. The CEO of Marks & Spencer has described the proposals as completely preposterous. So can the Secretary of State confirm, instead of trying to impose price controls on private businesses, his department is instead looking to reduce the costs of government-imposed burdens on retailers, such as business rates, national insurance contributions and energy costs?
There will be no price cap. There will be no price controls. But I'm not going to apologise for throwing everything in the kitchen sink at the cost of living challenges that we inherited in an economy that was broken.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was delighted to recently host my honourable friend, the Hospitality Minister, at the top of our iconic Blackpool Tower, alongside our tourism CEO, Kate Shane, to discuss the opportunities and challenges facing our visitor economy. Our tourism sector supports thousands of jobs, yet SMEs locally are being hit hard by rising costs and pressure of seasonal economy. But Blackpool does come to the government not with problems alone, but with a clear, credible plan. So does the Secretary of State agree that coastal towns require targeted economic support, and will he back our proposal to pilot a new tourism zone?
I'm very grateful for his question. Yes, I can say that Little Leighton, in my honourable friend's constituency, one of the 379 communities across the UK, will be receiving Pride in Place funding. It is just one of the cross-departmental packages of support that his constituency will be benefiting from. We won't forget. We will keep on supporting him all the way.
So Julian Smith.
Speaker, JB Springs and Skipton has been in touch about this issue of quotas. They import steel. They're worried about the cost of steel in the future for their company. I personally don't have an issue with many aspects of his bill, but this quota issue is really causing problems. So is there some structure for colleagues to come and meet with the department so that businesses can communicate their worries? And can he keep an open mind about the quotas and review these in less than 12 months?
I'm very happy to meet with the company and with himself if he wants to come and see me to talk through all of these issues. I mean, it is really important. If we are to have a steel sector, a steel production sector in this country, we do need to make sure that it has an opportunity to compete with unfair competition around the rest of the world. And that's why we're taking the action we are. My honourable friend made the point earlier that if we don't take this action on quotas and on tariffs, the problem is that we will be dumped on because every other major economy that is equivalent to ours is taking that action. But I'm very happy to look at the precise details with the company and him.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I've recently met with two local businesses who've been hammered by changes by the Scottish Government to business rates. Osborne Motors, who've seen their business rates increase from £185 a month to £695 a month, and Big Sky Campers in Rosyth that have seen an incredible 470% rise from £180 to £1,025 a month, putting both of these businesses at risk. Will the Minister please agree with me that these are ridiculous rises for small businesses to cope with, and will he assure me he will do everything in his power to...
Please, come on. For a minute, tell me who you don't want me to get in, because that's what's happening when we do this. Secretary of State.
He raises an incredibly important point. The UK government has a support package for England, £4.3 billion to protect ratepayers. The Barnett consequentials, of course, provide support for Scotland, but where the UK government is supporting businesses, the SNP is choking off investment and risking jobs.
Bradley Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government's new steel tariff and quota regime due to come in a few weeks means that many businesses face a cliff edge. One in my constituency recently got in touch to tell me that they face a slow death or a swift one, and they face calling in the administrators before Christmas. Will the Minister keep an open mind with regard to extending the transitional period, and will the Minister agree to meet with me and a very small number of my constituents who will be affected?
Of course, I'm happy to meet. Maybe we should organise a meeting for several companies and several honourable members. I'm very happy to do that as soon as possible. I don't want to extend the transition period for the simple reason that the EU and the United States of America and other countries are introducing very similar measures, and the danger is that we would just be dumped. But of course, there will be a review mechanism after a year, and I'm very keen to meet with as many colleagues to explain the trade-offs that we're having to make.
Chair of the Select Committee, Liam Bell.
Thank you very much. The committee is meeting steelmakers later today, and we'll supply the government with its advice from that. But I want to raise the issue of the automotive sector, because we are not going to double automotive production in the way the Secretary of State wants unless we fundamentally reform the ZEV mandate. Automakers are subsidising sales by $5 billion a year. They are transferring money to state-subsidised players like BYD, and battery costs have not fallen. Will the Secretary of State now bring forward a whole market review and reform this ZEV mandate for good?
My right honourable friend, of course, as he always does, gives great voice to the automotive sector. I've listened very closely to the voices of the sector itself when it comes to the ZEV mandate. It's really important that we do so. It's also very important that when we set targets like this, we take into account consumer demand as well as the targets that we set here. This is something I'm very aware of, and I'm having conversations across government with my colleagues.
Speaker, Bath has a thriving hospitality sector and many young people who need and rely on, but dare I say enjoy, flexible part-time jobs to support their studies. Of course, we Liberal Democrats support measures to tackle exploitative contracts. Who wouldn't? But will the government ensure these reforms retain genuine flexibilities that students, but also other members of our workforce need for their work-life balance?
I thank the Honourable Member for her question. Boosting opportunity and tackling youth unemployment in every area remains a priority, and helping young people into work is absolutely crucial for that. For the flexibility, absolutely. We know some people value that flexibility, and that's why I'll be considering it as part of the regulations.
Jenka.
Mr. Speaker, Cornwall has so much to offer the UK, from critical minerals, floating offshore in the Celtic Sea, defence, geothermal, but infrastructure, particularly ports and rail, will be absolutely critical to enable that growth. Cornwall will be a perfect place to designate as an industrial strategy zone. Would the Minister agree to meet with myself and Cornish colleagues to discuss?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So my honourable friend is absolutely right about the potential in Cornwall. Cornwall is a unique and distinctive part of the country, powered our industrial past, it will power our industrial future, and I will be very happy to meet with her and colleagues to talk more about the opportunities in Cornwall.
Lincoln Job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The pubs in Spelthorne are under the cosh, and in the answer that the Minister gave to the member for Broadland and Fakenham, she said that a review of pubs and how they are valued for business rates purposes is ongoing. She'll know that that's not going to report until 2029, or not be relevant until then. Pubs are closing today. Young people are losing their jobs today. Please will the front bench do more to lobby the Treasury for our pubs?
I thank him for his question. Pubs in the Honourable Member's constituency and nationwide are so important to day-to-day community life, and we are mindful of the challenges they've faced in recent years. The number has fallen by nearly 7,000 since 2010. We know how significant it is, and I'll be working really closely with colleagues to support them.
Adam Jogi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted the government's listened to my calls and those from my neighbours in Stoke-on-Trent to finally act and support the ceramics industry. Calls so loud, Stoke Central's lost his voice. Whilst we await the detail, Mr. Speaker, will the Secretary of State come to North Staffordshire to meet the ceramic businesses that he and this government are helping today?
I'm very grateful for his comments. The package that we will be announcing today will be significant. I won't say any more because the Chancellor will be making that announcement a little later today. But what I can say is that the results of it and the boldness of it is a direct consequence of the voices we have heard from MPs, including himself and those of Stoke, were losing their voice or not. The voice they have given have been profoundly important to the scope and scale and boldness of what will be announced today.
Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, hospitality businesses in North East Fife do support the Lib Dem call for a VAT cut to hospitality, but the government don't seem to be moving on that. So can I ask the Minister whether we consult with businesses on a lower NICS band for part-time workers? They're so important to hospitality and getting younger people into work.
I thank her for her question, and it was a pleasure to meet with her recently in hospitality sector in her constituency. She will know there are a wide range of factors that the government needs to consider when introducing new tax reliefs, and she'll know that they happen in the usual way. And with the alleviation we've already introduced on NICS, they're making a real difference for young people getting into employment, and we'll consider to review that in the usual way.
Rachel Mason.
Mr. Speaker, in October, Nestlé announced 16,000 job losses, including 450 here in the UK. In the light of the significant impact this is going to have on my city of York, will the Minister ensure not only meaningful consultation happens with the trade unions, but would he meet with them to ensure that we save these jobs?
Yes, of course I would. Yeah.
Glover.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Small businesses on Didcot's Broadway are struggling with energy and staff costs, business rates and a rising tax burden, and the older town centre would benefit from investment and rejuvenation. So for areas such as Didcot that did not receive Pride in Place funding, what suggestions does the Minister have for funding or other forms of support for Didcot's Broadway?
Businesses in Didcot and right around the country need is a fast-growing economy, and that's what we're delivering.
Mr. Speaker, in my constituency of Stafford, we're seeing good growth in our large employers. We're seeing a great skills pipeline come through from our Advanced Technical College. But what we do need is a little support for SMEs. Could the Minister tell me what targeted support is available for towns like Stafford for the SMEs?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. She raises a very important point about support for small businesses, and it's very important for small businesses that their cash flow is protected and they're paid on time. So hopefully she noticed in the King's speech we're going to bring forward our commercial payments bill, which will give us the strongest legal framework in the G7.
Ollie Glover. Oh, sorry, I called him. Sorry, you would stay back there.
15 months on from the 15 months on from the £200 million pledge to Grangemouth and 5 months on from the Minister's confirmation that prospective projects were being examined and shortlisted, what progress is being made to deliver new industry and jobs for Grangemouth?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So my honourable friend is right. There is a £200 million available for such projects, and the initial £14.5 million of funding that was announced will help businesses to test the feasibility of their project ideas in order to secure that long-term funding from the National Wealth Fund.
Sorry, Bill.
Mr. Speaker, back to the 1st of July tariffs. The quotas are too small, the commodity cost codes are too broad. The steel required for aerospace can only come from, I think, SS UK, which is currently in liquidation. The grade cannot be produced elsewhere. That's for commercial steel. Businesses will be bankrupted within 6 months. 12 months is far too long. Will the front bench please listen to industry on this?
Yeah.
Well, we are listening to both sides of industry because there's the downstream users and there's the production. And the truth of the matter is that UK steel production under the previous government fell from 27 million, I think I'm correct in saying this, tonnes a year, to 4 million tonnes a year. We need, if we're to meet our armament needs in future years, we need a sovereign steel capacity in this country. We have to be able to produce British steel, and that we have been very careful to make sure that the quotas are cutting only areas where UK can produce that steel.
Lily Jones.
Mr. Speaker, does the Minister agree with me that expanding the use of homegrown timber in construction and manufacturing would not only support UK forestry and small businesses, but also strengthen supply chain resilience and reduce our reliance on imports, currently 80%? So what specific measures will they introduce to support this sector as a strategic national asset?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, my honourable friend knows how strong an advocate I am of steel in construction, but I think she's right. There has been a missed opportunity on timber in construction, particularly as many of our hardwood forests are coming to maturity, which means that we will have a real surplus of hardwood in the UK. One thing we will suffer from, though, is downstream processing of timber. So what we need to look at is how we can encourage more investment in the sawmills and downstream processing industry.
Just to say, the first question, Harriet Cross, she was on the order paper. She had withdrawn. I want to reassure the House it was a mistake that was made and we were following the agenda. Hopefully it won't be repeated again by the table office. Right, we'll let the front bench change over. Before we come to the urgent cost on motorists, the urgent question, I'm going to repeat what I've said to the House at the start of the parliamentary session. The government's own ministerial code makes it clear that important policy announcements should be made in the first instance to this House when it's sitting. Some people seem to have very short memories. We've had the last 3 days of this announcement being drip-fed to the media. That is not in line with the government's own rules, and it is unacceptable. These backbenchers of either side are elected to this House to hear it first, not to be outside of Morrison's petrol station, not to be on a bus, not doing it to TikTok. These members should be respected. I uphold this House and I respect the members if the government doesn't. The government's got to get its act together and recognise the value of its own backbenchers. Right, we now come to the urgent question. Sir Melstride, Chancellor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Chancellor of the Exchequer if she will make a statement on the government's plan
for the costs to motorists.
Lucy Rigby.
Mr Speaker, just to note that your comments just then are fully noted, and I'll ensure that they're fed back to the entirety of the ministerial team. Mr Speaker, the government is taking steps to support households and businesses with their fuel costs in response to the conflict in the Middle East. Rapid de-escalation in the Middle East remains the best way to bring down fuel prices, where the most impactful step is, of course, to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. That's exactly why the UK government is playing a leading role in the international effort to get shipping flowing freely. And indeed, I contrast that with the position of the Leader of the Opposition, who would have rushed us to war. So alongside this key step, Mr Speaker, so the Boys Club...
Sorry. I can't hear what the Minister's saying, and in fairness, we've put the urgent question in which we can hear the Minister. Look, I'm proud of this Parliament, I'm proud of this country, so I do want to hear it, Minister.
So alongside this key step, Mr Speaker, the government's priorities will continue to be helping families with the cost of living, including through protecting the public finances. The government's taking action to bear down on prices at the pump, and in November we extended the 5p per litre cut in fuel duty for a further 5 months. Right now, petrol and diesel are 11p per litre cheaper than under plans inherited from the previous government. Some fuels have been more impacted than others by this conflict. We recognise that, and the government also recognises the pressures being faced by drivers and other fuel users. That is exactly why we are introducing a package worth over £400 million, which combines broad support for motorists with targeted support for sectors most exposed to and affected by higher fuel prices. And yesterday, the Prime Minister made clear that we will not increase fuel duty this year. The temporary 5p cut will be extended until the end of the year. And taken together, the government's decisions will save the average motorist over £120 this year compared to plans inherited from the previous government. But we also recognise, Mr Speaker, that farmers face substantially increased costs on fertilisers and fuel, and that's why we're going further, cutting the duty rate on red diesel by over a third per litre to the lowest rate in over 20 years, and that of course will help other users of red diesel too. And then when it comes to road haulage, this sector, as members will recognise, is vital for transporting goods right across the country, and recognising that key role and the increased costs that the sector is facing, we are introducing a 12-month holiday for vehicle excise duty for the majority of heavy goods vehicles. This will save, Mr Speaker, a typical HGV over £600, up to £912 on some vehicles, on top of the savings that I just described when it comes to fuel duty. So, Mr Speaker, to conclude, this is one part of support for households and businesses. It combines universal support for motorists with targeted support for those most affected by higher fuel prices. And my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, will update the House later on today on further support measures for households and businesses.
Shadow Chancellor Simulstry.
Mr Speaker, may I begin by agreeing with you and to say that how disrespectful it is that this U-turn on fuel duty has already been released to the media earlier this week. The news was plastered across national newspapers on Monday, and the Chancellor then conducted a visit to a petrol station yesterday with journalists. But it has taken until today for this House to be updated. This is a pattern, Mr Speaker, including, of course, the relentless briefings before the budget last year about tax measures and fiscal forecasts. You would think a government with so little support amongst its own backbenchers would have more respect for this place. Mr Speaker, this change to fuel duty is yet another humiliating U-turn from a Chancellor and Prime Minister whose authority is shot. The Chancellor fought us tooth and nail on this issue. The Conservative Party has been campaigning for a fuel duty freeze for months. The Chancellor repeatedly rejected those calls, creating unnecessary uncertainty for motorists and businesses. Why did it take her so long to realise that putting up fuel duty during an energy crisis is a bad idea? Does the Chancellor really expect us to believe that this is all only happening, as she has suggested, because of better growth? Let's be clear, Mr Speaker. The Chancellor has been pointing to the slight upward revision in the IMF's growth forecasts earlier this week. That forecast was for growth of 1.0%. But until April, the IMF were forecasting growth this year of 1.3%. So where is the supposed growth dividend? And perhaps the Honourable Lady could address that momentarily. Is the Chancellor seriously suggesting that the outlook is better now compared to how it looked at the last fiscal event? And on wider measures, Mr. Speaker, will the Minister confirm whether what has also been briefed to the press, not to this House, that HMRC mileage rates are to be changed? Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. This is a government lurching from one U-turn to the next. Their mismanagement has left our economy weak. The reality is they're in no position to support people through these cost of living pressures because they have mismanaged the economy. They have no credibility left, and clearly they have no respect for this House.
Mr. Speaker, put simply, as I said, his party had motorists hurtling full speed towards higher fuel costs. It's only because of the action that this government has taken that we've applied the brake to the hikes that his party would have introduced. They would have introduced, Mr. Speaker, higher costs. We are lowering, we're keeping the freeze on fuel duty and protecting millions of motorists right across this country. And exactly as I said, we're taking further measures when it comes to red diesel and for HGV drivers as well. And this is on top, Mr. Speaker, of additional action that we're taking on the cost of living. The Shadow Chancellor and I saw each other in the studios early this morning when I was out there talking about the free unlimited bus travel for children that we're going to be. The Chancellor is going to be updating on this earlier today.
Sorry. Just say to the Minister, I don't think it's a good example that we was in the studios rather than telling this out. It's confirming my problem that that Sky or BBC is more important than the backbenchers who've been elected by constituents across this country are hearing it second-hand. It is not acceptable. So don't think it's a bonus to tell the House now.
Speaker, the Chancellor will be coming along to the House later along today, and she's going to...
Order. I think the point I was making was that you said that you were doing the studios. You're here now. I think it should have been here first. Do we both agree, Minister?
Mr. Speaker, my apologies. I was intending to say just then that the Chancellor will come to the House and will give a full statement on exactly everything, including the matters that we are discussing today. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, that the Shadow Chancellor is so upset and so appalled by the recent growth figures. I am in the business of talking this country up rather than down, and indeed I'm grateful to him for highlighting that growth has been revised up. Interest rates are coming down, inflation is coming down, real wages are going up. And as I said, Mr. Speaker, this is because of the prudent decisions that this government has taken, all of which is allowing us to take further action when it comes to the cost of living. But this action that we're taking in relation to fuel duty is very, very important, and it's going to save millions of motorists lost money right across this country. I will address, Mr. Speaker, the point on HMRC mileage rates. The Chancellor will come to this House, as I said, later on and talk about the full package.
The Ambassador of the Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for facilitating this statement. I welcome the announcements on fuel duty, but I didn't hear the Chief Secretary say anything about remedies for the new costs on drivers of electric vehicles. Those new costs imposed at the last budget are suppressing demand for electric vehicles in our country to such an extent that UK automakers are having to subsidise demand by £5 billion a year. That is imperiling the future of UK automakers. It is imperiling the target of doubling automotive production by 2035. So can we have a statement about what the government is going to do to reform the ZEV mandate and actually get in place a plan that leads to a thriving auto industry and not a dying auto industry?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend makes a very important point, and I know how passionate he is about exactly these issues. He refers to changes that were made at budget, and they were made with the best of intentions and from the point of view of encouraging the use of electric vehicles in this country. I believe the Chancellor may be saying something on that later on today.
Daisy Cooper, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like so many Labour government announcements, the extension of the fuel duty relief later this year is too little, too late. And when we look around the world, other countries are acting now. Other countries are cutting fuel duty now. Other countries are cutting public transport costs now. And that is why we Liberal Democrats continue to call on the government to cut fuel duty and public transport costs now. So what message does the Minister think it sends to people that they'll take action later in the year when they are feeling the pain in their pockets right now? When it comes to farmers, Mr Speaker, the government will be aware that the cost of fertiliser is going through the roof and world prices are up by 44%. So when the Minister says that there will be a further cut to red diesel, can I ask the Minister what assessment her government has made of the cumulative impact of the war in Iran on farmers? Because it's clear to me that this cut in red diesel will not touch the sides when the cost of fertiliser is rocketing through the roof.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, the honourable member makes a really important point about the costs that farmers are facing, but that's exactly why we're taking the steps that we're taking in relation to red diesel, which is going to cut the duty by a third, more than a third, and it's the lowest rate in over 20 years. And as I said just earlier, Mr Speaker, that doesn't just help farmers, of course, that's going to help other sectors too, in terms, including in relation to freight. But I'm afraid, Mr Speaker, as is so often the case, we hear suggestions from the Liberal Democrats, cut this, cut that, you know, try and bring things down. The reality, the reality is that these things are never funded. And if you're going to manage, you manage the
Minister, sorry. The member has asked the question. I want respect given to the Minister when she's answering the question, please.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The point is that you have to manage the public finances in a responsible way. You can't put measures in place which are not fully funded. And I wish that in some of these proposals that were being put forward, they were adequately backed up by fully funded proposals.
Jim McMahon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. These are welcome announcements, and I should say to welcome the Chief Secretary to her place. The government also has a very important convening power. And one thing that residents in Oldham raise all the time is just how much they pay for car insurance when compared to other areas. And for low-paid workers, particularly those that need it for business and pay that additional premium, it is a lot of money going out every single year above and beyond what neighbouring areas will pay. So can I ask the Chief Secretary to convene the insurance industry together and see what can be done to finally address this postcode lottery?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend raises a really important issue, and I'd like to thank him for all the work which I know that he's done in this space, exactly from the point of view of trying to bring down the costs that people across the country are paying. In my old role as Economic Secretary to the Treasury, I was indeed closer to the work of the insurance sector and the work which the current Economic Secretary is now taking forward to try and ensure that prices are brought down. But I'm more than happy to convene with the new Economic Secretary and take forward the work that he suggests.
Speaker. Obviously, the Minister is not aware that the previous Conservative government froze fuel duty for 14 years, otherwise she wouldn't be coming along. And some of us lobbied for the government of the day to actually abolish the escalator, but we didn't do it. However, could I ask her one key question, and that is, with the rise in the wholesale price of fuel at the pumps, how much extra money has the Treasury obtained as a result?
Mr Speaker, I'm afraid that the honourable member has entirely missed the fact that the plans that his government left in place would have meant that fuel duty would have gone up. And it is only because of the action that this government is taking that means that millions of motorists across the country will save money.
Justin Mathers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I welcome the efforts to support drivers at the petrol pumps? But it's obvious that this has not led to an increase in demand in the sales of electric vehicles. As the Chair of the Select Committee has already said, the automotive sector is facing a real crisis because of the Z mandate. I was at the Vauxhall plant in my constituency last week. There isn't the consumer demand there. There isn't going to be the consumer demand there to meet the escalating demands of the Z mandate. Can the Treasury please use their convening power across government to bring forward the review of the Z mandate?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I appreciate, as I said earlier in response to my honourable friend, that this is a really important issue, and I know indeed what an important issue it is to my honourable friend and in his constituency as well. And as I said, I'm more than happy to take this up, and I'll discuss this with the Exchequer Secretary.
David Chapman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Increased fuel costs are a real pain point in a constituency like mine. Rural households that depend on their cars spend nearly £800 a year more on fuel than people who live in urban areas. So will the government listen again to the Liberal Democrats' demands for an immediate 10p cut in fuel duty that would bring down pump prices by 12 pence per litre?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I think these suggestions are being made with the best of intentions, but with the deepest respect to the honourable member, this is all motherhood and apple pie. You have to be able to say where this money is going to come from if you want to do these nice things.
Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I thank the Minister and my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, for recognising the important role that hauliers and freight play in our national economy and our local economies. The steps announced yesterday are a huge support to 3,500 people in my constituency who work in transport and logistics, and these are the people that keep our shelves stocked and our economies moving. But can I ask that the Minister liaises with her colleagues in other government departments to look at what other support could be made available for the logistics sector, including improved welfare facilities?
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend raises a really important issue in relation to hauliers and indeed the road haulage sector. That's why what we're talking about today is so critical when it comes to the cost that hauliers are paying and vehicle excise duty, which of course is on top of the changes that we're making to fuel duty to save hauliers money. That is part of our recognition of the really critical role that hauliers play in costs, including of consumer goods. So this all fits together, and I recognise that how important it is to her constituency.
Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. And rural drivers in West Worcestershire will be delighted that the Chief Secretary has seen the political reality, which is that it would have been mad to put another 5 pence on petrol on the 1st of September. But could she also explain something else that would seem very, very inexplicable to my constituents, which is why we are not allowing oil and gas extraction from our own basin, but we are allowing an increase in terms of Putin-produced oil and gas.
Yeah. Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm grateful to the honourable member for her question, but I would ask her by reply that if it was so mad, why was it her party's intention to do exactly that when it comes to fuel duty? On oil and gas, we've been very clear that oil and gas will play a part in our fuel mix for years and years to come.
Adam Thompson.
Mr Speaker, the Tories oversaw the only parliament in history where living standards were lower at the end than they were at the start. This government, by contrast, got wages up more in a year than the Tories did in a decade, with growth and inflation rates better than forecast. Does the Chief Secretary agree with me, then, that our economic plan is the best possible when it comes to delivering for my constituents in Erewash, very much including their interests as motorists?
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his question, and it's because of these fiscally responsible choices that the Chancellor has made that we've seen growth going up, we've seen real wages up, we've seen inflation down and interest rates down as well. And look, these things do not happen by accident. They're because of the fiscally responsible way that the Chancellor is managing our economy. And that is fiscal responsibility for a purpose, that purpose being to support working people right across this country.
Charlotte Shelburne.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, may I first of all welcome the Right Honourable Lady to her new role in the Cabinet. She was an excellent colleague when she was on the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, and it doesn't surprise me that she's the first to ever make it. So it's in that spirit, Mr Speaker, that I hope to be able to help the Right Honourable Lady in marking her career out, because 90% of my constituency is rural, and fuel increases do worry people, and they don't put that money into the economy because they don't know where it's going to go. So could the Right Honourable Lady do something which should have been done under the last Conservative government, but she has an opportunity under this Labour government? Let's just say we're not putting these false figures for raising fuel duty in, because it never happens, and it would be a much better boost to the economy if people had certainty about their fuel costs.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful indeed to the honourable member for his kind comments, and I appreciate where he's trying to go with his remarks. But what we are doing with this announcement is saving the average motorist over £120 this year compared to the plans that we inherited, and in saying, as the Prime Minister did, that we are going to extend the cut until the end of the year, until the 31st of December. We are trying to give people that bit of certainty and that bit of reassurance, because we recognise that family budgets are really stretched at the moment, and indeed that is the reason why we're taking this measure, but plenty of other measures too, to try and help people with the cost of living.
Patricia Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Chief Secretary agree with me that it's right that we didn't rush into the Iran war, and it's right that our government's plans and actions to support households are responsive to changing events rather than being knee-jerk reactions which end up causing more damage to our economy in the longer term?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to honourable friend for those comments, and I think it just highlights again that the party opposite would have raced to war. And when I said that earlier, Mr. Speaker, they all, and they're doing it again, look, they're shaking their heads at me. The reality is the leader, well, okay, so either of two things are true. So either the leader of the opposition said that she would have taken us into the conflict, and she didn't mean it, in which case that's really confused, frankly, or she said it and she meant it, in which case that is demonstrative of really catastrophic judgment. But I would say, Mr. Speaker, that either of those things, be it catastrophically bad judgment or indeed deep confusion, neither of those things are ideal qualities on someone that wants to run the country.
The Chamberlain.
Mr. Speaker, the Government has repeatedly pointed out to the Fuel Finder website as the best way to keep prices low through competition. But in my own constituency of North East Fife, costs have gone up so much that there's basically no variation between the pumps. And those high prices are crippling for everyone, but particularly local businesses like the fish merchants from the East Neuk, who go far and beyond North East Fife to deliver to customers directly. Driving isn't avoidable for a constituency like mine. And the Government is obviously not looking at the Lib Dem proposals, but why don't the Government offer meaningful support beyond red diesel in rural constituencies? What about EV charging, for example, where often in constituencies like mine, people have to charge away from home because they need their car to get about the constituency?
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the honourable member for those comments, and not least the reference. We are, I should say, supporting motorists in a meaningful way. But it's really important. She mentions the CMA's Fuel Finder scheme. Now, the intention of that is to save households that own a car around, it could be up to £40 a year. And she's absolutely right that the key principle behind that is about competition. And we know that competition is the way that we get to greater choice and indeed lower prices for consumers.
Where do we go? David Mundell of
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Chief Secretary reassure me that the Treasury does really understand that in rural areas the cost of fuel doesn't just relate to what motorists pay for driving? It affects everything that is on sale in the shops, all goods and services provided, and therefore, rather than trying to put caps on the cost of things that are on sale in shops, the best way in rural areas to help keep costs down is to keep fuel costs down.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the honourable member for those comments. But I have to tell him that we are not attempting to cap the prices that you see in supermarkets, nor were we intending to. What is happening is that the Chancellor is having discussions with supermarkets, as indeed she is with other sectors, with a view to putting downwards pressure on prices and helping people with the cost of living. Because, as I've said repeatedly, we on this side of the House recognise that there's a cost of living crisis out there, not least because of the inheritance that we receive from the party opposite, and we are seeking to help people with those costs.
Mr Speaker, can I thank my right honourable friend for recognising and supporting hauliers and logistics companies like the Malcolm Group, the UK's leading independent provider of third-party logistics services, who are based in my constituency and support many hundreds of jobs across Paisley and Renfrewshire South. They play such an important role in keeping our shelves stocked and our economies running. But can I echo calls made by my honourable friend, the member for Bathgate and Linlithgow, for us to go further in supporting greater welfare facilities for their drivers? And can I also ask that she make some comment on the safety of logistics staff who too often are manning vehicles that are being targeted by criminals?
Mr Speaker, I'm glad to hear that these measures are going to help the Malcolm Group in my honourable friend's constituency, as indeed they will hauliers right across the country. But my honourable friend, as indeed have others too, Mr Speaker, raises a really important point around welfare, and indeed I think she was alluding to freight crime. And so this is something that I know has been discussed at length in this House. It's something that I'm particularly interested in, given the nature too of my constituency. I know that the government is taking forward action to seek to deal with to freight crime and indeed on welfare too, but I'm more than happy to convene a meeting with other ministers and indeed my honourable friends in relation to this issue.
Sarah Patchett.
Very much, Mr Speaker. Does the Minister agree with me that one of the government's main responsibilities is to provide energy security for its citizens? And as a nation resplendent with our own resources, why will this government not issue more licences to drill in the North Sea for oil and gas, which would make us energy sufficient and therefore have a knock-on effect at the pumps?
Mr Speaker, the best way to get to energy security is by doing exactly what the Secretary of State for Energy is doing at the moment, and the push towards renewables. I have to tell her, I'm afraid, that new licences in the North Sea wouldn't bring new oil and gas on stream for another 10 years. So that really is the wrong solution.
Chris Hitchley.
Mr Speaker, the freeze and fuel duty will be a relief to drivers in North East Hertfordshire, but part of the reason why this is such a problem is because after the party opposite's last stint in government, public transport was left virtually non-existent in rural communities like mine. We've discussed earlier this week the enormous cost of HS2, over £100 billion. If we were investing that scale of money in bus services, we could provide a vastly improved network across the whole country for decades to come. So will the government learn the lessons of the current crisis and redirect our public transport spending towards the journeys we need to make in our day-to-day lives?
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend raises a really important point about the critical nature of bus services to the entirety of the country. And that's exactly why we're providing over £3 billion for buses over the next 3 years to cap fares at £3 and indeed to maintain and improve services as well. So that includes funding for local authorities so that they can put in place initiatives when it comes to local fares if they wish to do so, as I believe the North East Combined Authority has done. But we're also making reforms, Mr Speaker, when it comes to bus franchising, which will allow new and better services too.
And a message, Jackie.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I just want to come back to what the Minister said earlier on about the war in Iran. She knows full well that the Leader of the Opposition did not say that she would take us into this conflict, and she knows full well that the operation was a no-fawn operation, and there was never an opportunity for the UK to be involved. And if she doesn't know that, she should go and speak to the defence team and get up to date with the details. But on that, I think as a cheek, considering that the government has just decided it's going to row back on its pressure that it's going to put on Russia. So can she explain exactly why, given her media round this morning, which didn't explain this, exactly why the government has decided to exempt oil and oil products that originate from Russia under Commodity Code 2709 or from 2710?
Mr Speaker, I wholeheartedly reject any accusation or idea whatsoever that we are somehow going soft on Russia and on Putin. That is completely wrong. And the new package of sanctions that we've introduced are stronger today.
Sorry. I told the front bench, and I'm telling the back bench, you've had the courtesy of being able to ask a question. I want you to hear the answer, and I need to hear the answer as well, Minister.
the package of sanctions that are in place today is stronger than the package of sanctions that was in place last week. We have a world-leading sanctions regime in this country. At the moment, we have more than 3,300 sanctions of Russian entities, businesses, individuals, ships. The list goes on and on. And why does it go on and on? It's because of our steadfast support for Ukraine.
Speaker, Scotland is an energy superpower, and it's particularly galling, therefore, for constituents and businesses in my own constituency, which is a 2.5-hour drive end to end, and where road vehicles are an absolute necessity to conduct daily life, to face the prices that they're currently facing. Will the government commit to using the hundreds of millions of pounds of extra tax revenue they've got in VAT to a VAT freeze for the duration of this current crisis?
Aye.
Mr. Speaker, I won't commit to that now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst it's good news that the Chancellor has been forced into another humiliating U-turn over her increase in fuel duty, this just delays the increase until the end of the year. But the cost of living is surging and families are feeling the pinch in every aspect of their lives. So why won't the government simply put people and businesses, give them the certainty they need and cancel the fuel duty increase altogether?
Mr. Speaker, there's absolutely nothing humiliating about taking action that the Chancellor is taking, the Prime Minister is taking, to protect millions of motorists across this country. And again, I'm afraid I have to remind him, the plans that we inherited from the previous government would have seen motorists paying more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome this latest U-turn by the Chancellor to freeze fuel duty, which will help my constituents. And I also welcome the cut in duty in red diesel to help our farmers. The government's carbon border adjustment mechanism comes into effect on the 1st of January. This will increase further the cost of fertiliser, which in turn will push up the price of food. So will the Chief Secretary undertake a review of that carbon border adjustment mechanism to protect all our constituents from further food price increases?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for that intervention, and particularly the highlighting of the moves that we're making when it comes to red diesel, because he mentions the fertiliser costs. Now, we know that those substantially increased fertiliser costs, but also fuel, are hurting farmers. Diesel, so cutting the duty rate by over a third per litre, from just over 10 pence to just to 6.5 pence, which, as I said previously, is the lowest rate for over 20 years.
Mr. Speaker, and can I warmly welcome the Minister to her new role. My rural North Cornwall constituency doesn't have a regular or reliable bus service. It doesn't even have a single mainline train station. So my constituents are forced to rely on their cars to get to school, work, care for relatives, not to mention the transport of goods. I welcome this modest freeze, but please will the Minister meet with me to discuss North Cornwall being part of the government's rural fuel duty relief scheme. And while we're there, perhaps I can explain how our excellent Lib Dem proposals are all fully costed.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful to the honourable member. I may ask that our meeting, when indeed we do meet, as I'm happy to do so, is fully focused on the matters at hand.
Mr. Speaker, having worked in the oil industry, I understand the flow of oil products around the world quite well, and it's unquestionable that the government has eased the prospect of Putin's oil flowing into the UK's oil market. That's beyond doubt. So 2 questions to the Minister. 1, can she explain the Treasury's calculation of the extent to which they think this move may benefit UK motorists? Can she explain why the government has decided to do this? And can she tell us what she thinks the cost will be to the government's integrity and whether it's worth it?
I assume he means, Mr. Speaker, when he says to do this in relation to the licences in the sanctions regime. Yeah, okay, just clarifying. Look, these licences are specific, they are targeted, and they're going to be reviewed on a very regular basis. The reason, and he'll know, given that he understands the flows of oil so well, he'll know that licences are a very, very common part of the sanctions regime. So the reasons that these licences, the reasons that they're being put in place is such that we can stage the impact on the economy. And indeed, if you look look at what the European Union is doing in relation to these issues, they're going to achieve a full ban by the end of 2026. They too are staging the impact. So this is a sensible measure when it comes to our economy. But what is not in doubt, what is totally beyond doubt, is the fact of our steadfast support for Ukraine, as I said, and the pressure that we are continuing to put with our international allies on Vladimir Putin.
That completes the urgent question. Let the front benches change over. Come to business questions. Shadow Leader of the House, Jesse Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Leader give the House the forthcoming business?
Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The business for the week commencing the 1st of June will include Monday the 1st of June, second reading of the Health Bill, Tuesday the 2nd of June, Committee of the Whole House on the Armed Forces Bill, Wednesday the 3rd of June, remaining stages of the Railways Bill, Thursday the 4th of June, a general debate on Pride Month, Friday the 5th of June, the House will not be sitting. The provisional business for the week commencing the 8th of June includes Monday the 8th of June, Committee of the Whole House of the Steel Industry Nationalisation Bill, Day 1. Tuesday the 9th of June, conclusion of the Committee of the Whole House and remaining stages of the Steel Industry Nationalisation Bill. Wednesday the 10th of June, remaining stages of the Cyber Security and Resilient Network and Information Systems Bill. Thursday the 11th of June, general debate on the legacy of Joe Cox. And Friday the 12th of June, the House will not be sitting.
Jesse Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's famously true that our present Prime Minister gets 100 times more animated and passionate about the performance of his football club every weekend than he does about trivial details of social, economic or foreign policy, and still more so when it comes to defeating the enemy from Manchester. So one would have to have a heart of stone, Mr. Speaker, not to congratulate the Prime Minister on the success of Arsenal Football Club in winning the Premier League. I noticed the astonishing lack of reaction from the other side. As we United fans say, only 11 more Premiership wins to go, and Mikel Arteta will still be one short of Alex Ferguson. In this World Cup year, we remember with deep warmth and affection the heroes of 1966. I refer, of course, to the band of brothers who were so inspired by England's World Cup victory that they set up Westfields Football Club in Hereford. And I pay special tribute to the legend that is Andy Morris, not ignoring his brilliant wife, Sandra, who has been synonymous with Westfields ever since. Now, Mr. Speaker, whatever happens in Makerfield, it seems inevitable that there will soon be a leadership contest in the Labour Party. The markets are spooked, the pundits are pontificating, the pollsters are rampant. But amid all the media speculation, there is one candidate, one extraordinary dark horse, who has not yet even been mentioned. That is why I am delighted in relation to the leadership of the Labour Party to announce my strong support in his bid for the top job for the Leader of the House. Colleagues will have noticed a certain coyness from the Leader about his own position last week in Business Questions. Make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, that's the clear sign of a man preparing to throw his hat into the ring. For months now, I have lived myself with I must admit, a secret fear that the government will have a reshuffle and the Leader of the House will be relegated from the light of the chamber back into the Stygian depths of the Labour Whip's office. Luckily, the Prime Minister has remained far too weak even to contemplate a reshuffle. But I ask colleagues across this House, and especially on the Labour benches, to contemplate that hideous prospect, that drastic loss of warmth and wit and wisdom from these proceedings. As Ben Jonson said of Francis Bacon, when he spoke, the fear of everyone was that he would make an end. Now, some foolish and ill-advised people will say that this leadership bid is an improbable one, possibly even in this age of Botox, TikTok and Justin Trudeau, that a Prime Minister should be constructed on more youthful, foolish, inexperienced, and dare I say it, sleeker lines, to which I cry shame, Mr. Speaker, and fie upon these unimaginative gloomsters and naysayers. What fools they are. It's precisely that apparently diffident Clark Kent exterior that makes my candidate, our candidate, such a politically electrifying prospect in a world in which a Labour Chancellor of the Exchequer can seriously advance the total economic shambles of supermarket food price caps. Any move is on the table. The Leader of the House can therefore immediately become Leader of the Labour Party. It's simple common sense. We barely even need to change the name. Mr. Speaker, you will be relieved to know that under my steady hand, the Leader's Labour leadership campaign is ready to roll. The website is in hand, the baseball caps and T-shirts have been ordered. As Hilaire Belloc says of Lord Lundy, the stocks were sold, the press was squared, the middle class was quite prepared. Donors are falling over themselves in order to associate themselves with this extraordinary political intervention. The one crucial remaining question is what campaign slogan we should use. We thought about common sense with Campbell. Campbell for the country, all in for Allen. But there are two slogans with which I think we really cannot fail. And when he responds, I know the Leader will want to take the opportunity of formally launching the campaign himself from the dispatch box, but perhaps he can also indicate which of these two slogans he prefers. Is it to be, yes, we Campbell, channeling the spirit of Barack Obama, or possibly, more inclusively, still, make Britain Campbell again? A nation awaits, Mr. Speaker. So may we have a debate in government time on this vital question.
Leader of the House, but just to remind the House, the most important game is being played on Sunday between Bolton Wanderers and Stockport. Good luck with Bolton. Come on, Leader.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I see the Leader's had his Weetabix again this morning. First of all, Mr. Speaker, can I extend my sympathies to the family and of Lance Bombardier, Ciara Sullivan, who lost her life in a tragic incident last week. It reminds us of the price sometimes paid by the brave men and women who serve our country so very well indeed. It's also, Mr. Speaker, tomorrow the 9th anniversary of the horrific Manchester Arena attack, which claimed the lives of 22 people and left many more injured. And I'm sure all those affected remain in the thoughts of the whole House. And last year, Mr. Speaker, Martin's Law received royal assent, which delivered on our commitment to strengthen the security of public events and venues and help prevent another tragedy from happening. I want to thank all the campaigners who were pivotal in delivering this legislation. Mr. Speaker, at the end of last week, the Treasury announced an independent review on access to banking to assess how changes to in-person banking services are affecting customers. The review will be chaired by Richard Lloyd, who many members will know. This is an issue, Mr. Speaker, which is regularly raised by members with me, and the government is committed to ensuring that everyone has access to the services that they need. Fly tipping is also an issue, Mr. Speaker, that members have raised with me frequently, and the government is listening, Mr. Speaker. Laws laid this week will require waste handlers to provide that they are qualified to transport waste. And we're tightening the net on waste criminals with tougher sentences for those illegally dumping waste and advanced background checks to put rogue operators out of business. Members will also be pleased that we're cracking down on high street crime, rogue barber shops, vape stores, mini-marts and sweet shops linked to organised crime. They'll face raids, closures and cash seizures under a new £30 million crackdown targeting money laundering, tax evasion and illegal working, which again, these are issues that have been raised in sessions such as these, Mr. Speaker, and therefore underlines the importance of the role that members play in influencing future policy and decision-making. Mr. Speaker, I also hope that members will be able to spend time in their constituencies over the recess and enjoy the warmer weather, hopefully, over the next bank holiday. And as an MP for a coastal constituency, I know how dangerous the sea can be, and I want to highlight the RNLI's annual Float to Live campaign. And this year's campaign is being fronted by Ewan Gray from Gateshead, who, with his brother Andrew, got caught in a notorious riptide off my constituency on Long Sands Beach in May last year. and I want to pay tribute to the volunteers of Cullercoats Lifeboat and Tynemouth Lifeboat, and indeed all the RNLI volunteers who tirelessly provide a critical service in coastal towns and villages across the UK. Let me turn, Mr. Speaker, to the remarks of the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Shadow Leader of the House, and I'm sure, as he acknowledged, that his gratitude for Arsenal beating Man City is genuine, coming from a dedicated Man United supporter. I'm sure it was genuine. He also reminds us of the heroes of 1966 and the last time that England won the World Cup. And I should remind the House that England has only ever won the World Cup under a Labour government. And therefore I look forward, Mr. Speaker, to the World Cup which starts shortly. On the other matter, which he seems preoccupied with, Mr. Speaker, about my candidature to be the Prime Minister, let me just say that there is no vacancy for a Prime Minister. But I do thank him for his endorsement, which I'm sure is well intentioned. But I should just warn the House, Mr. Speaker, that there's a double edge here, because every candidate which he has endorsed for the Tory leadership has either failed at the first hurdle or is failing in her leadership now.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. A number of constituents continue to really struggle as a result of Capita's delays in processing their civil service pensions, many of them having been retired without income for months. And I do know the Paymaster General has been holding them to account in various ways, but with Capita continuing to miss its own deadlines, could we have an update from the Paymaster General about what progress is being made?
Mr. Speaker, as we've said before, these delays are unacceptable. It's not the service that people deserve, and resolving this is a matter of urgency. We mandated a deadline of the 30th of June 2026 for Capita to restore all civil service pension scheme service levels to standard contractual agreements, and the Government will continue to monitor this closely and press for swift action.
Minister Chamberlain, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have to say, my honourable friend, the member for Carshalton and Wallington, who usually is here for business questions, is probably very glad not to be given Arsenal's success. But it's been very good to see that in English football we are seeing teams succeed who have not succeeded for some time. But it was a different case in Scotland at the weekend, where I congratulate Celtic on winning the league again. But as the wife and mother of Heart of Midlothian supporters, it has been a very difficult week, and I do congratulate them on the amazing season that they had. And I thank the Leader of the House for providing us with the certainty of the business for the next sitting week. It seems to be the only certainty we have. Who knows where we will be after that? The Prime Minister may well still be in post, but it's no doubt that his fading authority is doing the country no favours. We have seen how the bond markets have reacted to this uncertainty and chaos, and I fear this government is becoming a little like HS2, moving more slowly and making things more expensive for people in this country. But while the government lays out its vision, we on these benches believe a crucial piece of the economic puzzle is still missing. We will continue to make the case for closer ties with our closest allies and trading partners in the European Union, and that's a policy that the Labour Party simply cannot quite make up its mind about. And I note that the former Secretary of State for Health has made his pro-EU stall abundantly clear, whereas their candidate in Makerfield seems a little more unsure, despite his previous representations. Now, the Prime Minister's trade deal with North Korea is impressive, and I do trust that he misspoke yesterday, but we Liberal Democrats think that an UK-EU customs union is the single best way to start fixing the profound damage done to the British economy since Brexit. And so I was disappointed that Labour MPs joined forces with Reform and the Conservatives to vote down our plans yesterday for a customs union. Those red lines are deeply damaging to our economy. So will the Leader of the House impress on the Prime Minister that whatever potential leadership rivals think, the government's EU reset bill must include steps to negotiate such a customs union? Because we on this side of the House will keep coming back to that issue whenever we have the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Prime Minister acknowledged in real time yesterday, he did misspeak about the trade deal, but he was absolutely clear about our relationship with Europe. There won't be a return to the customs union, the single market or freedom of movement, and the government came into office on that basis. We are clear, however, that it is in the national interest to be closer to Europe. It's good for us and it's good for Europe, it's good for our security, it's good for our economy. And as the Honourable Lady has said, there will be an EU reset bill coming through, and I'm sure she'll be able to put the points that she raises not just to debate but to the test of a vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Will the Leader of the House join me in congratulating Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes children's charity Sunflowers Action Group on winning, by popular poll on my Facebook page, a £2,000 donation from BACTA, the Amusements and Arcades representative body. Sunflowers provides activities, respite and trips for children with life-limiting illnesses, doing amazing work supporting families in my local area, and this donation will help them to continue to do just that.
Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join my honourable friend in congratulating Sunflowers Children's Action Group on their brilliant work supporting children and their families and winning the vital funding. We're also taking action in this area, Mr. Speaker, with our Best Start in Life strategy, pledging to invest £1.5 billion over the next 3 years to support early years.
Bob Blackman, Chair of the Backbench Committee, re-elected unopposed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as we approach the end of the domestic football season, it's only right that we congratulate Aston Villa on winning the Europa League last night. And indeed, it's only a year ago that I was celebrating Tottenham winning the Europa League. So if I may say so, the most vital game on Sunday is Tottenham versus Everton, which may be... in terms of the Backbench Business Committee, I thank the House, obviously, for re-electing me. And I'm glad that on the order paper, I think we have 5 members of the committee to be reappointed to the committee. So on that basis, we're going to try and meet on Tuesday, Tuesday the 2nd of June, to consider the applications. I understand there are 11 new applications already to add to the 42 that we left when prorogation took place. I note that the Chairman of Ways and Means has indeed granted 2 of those debates in Westminster Hall to reduce our burden. I would therefore ask, obviously, the Leader for time as soon as possible in the Chamber for the Backbench Business Committee. And for those colleagues that are on the waiting list, the committee will make a decision on whether we clean out the waiting list or whether we continue with that existing waiting list. And I would ask colleagues not to reapply until such time as the committee has made that decision. Now, Mr. Speaker, you will know that I've been a champion of homeless people throughout my parliamentary career. And I was delighted that the government eventually got through the abolition of the Vagrancy Act during the last session. However, there is a requirement for a statutory instrument to actually introduce that, to abolish the Vagrancy Act for good. Can the Leader therefore arrange for the relevant minister to make sure that statutory instrument is brought forward forthwith, so we can actually get away from a position whereby people that are homeless can be prosecuted for the fact they're homeless? This is absolutely unacceptable and needs to be consigned to the history book.
Mr. Speaker, I join the rest of the House in congratulating the honourable gentleman on his unopposed re-election as the chair of the Backbench Business Committee, but not just for the next year, Mr. Speaker, but for the rest of this Parliament. And I do sincerely look forward to continuing working with him. I will endeavour to give him and the committee as much forward notice of upcoming backbench days, but I would advise members to listen to his wise words about applications at the moment. And I'll certainly give consideration, as he requests, of time for using government time for some of the debates which are in the queue. The honourable gentleman is a staunch advocate for tackling homelessness and did successfully, I remind the House, lead a private member's bill through, and that's no mean achievement. I agree with him that no one should be criminalised for sleeping rough, and the Vagrancy Act has no place in a just society. We have committed to repealing it in full. On the statutory instrument, I'll draw it to the attention of the relevant minister, and I will get him the update that he seeks.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. According to recent media reports, the honourable member for Clacton has taken a £5 million gift from a billionaire living some halfway across the world. Without this Guardian investigation, we would be none the wiser, however, and there are no controls on gifts for those campaigning before a general election is called. I remain deeply concerned, as do my constituents, that there may be substantial funds making their way into British politics through the back door. Will the Leader of the House ask ministers to consider how the Representation of the People Bill could tackle undeclared cash gifts and donations?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for his question. As he says, the Representation of the People Bill will give greater transparency and security around political donations, but I'll draw to the attention of the very able minister taking that bill through his concerns about perhaps the need to go further. The matters he refers to allude to very serious allegations, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the Parliamentary Commission for Standards looking into this matter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently visited the North Coats Shooting Club in my neighbouring constituency, where hundreds of my constituents gather every week to participate in their chosen sport. There are proposals, they tell me, to merge Section 1 and Section 2 certificates for the licensing of shotguns and rifles. They are very different in the context. So could the leader arrange for the minister to have a look at this and perhaps report back to the House?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I certainly will arrange for the minister to look at this and report back to him, indeed, to the House. And I have to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, having had some responsibility for the issues previously in government which he raises, my view is that you don't have to be a shooter to value shooting as a sport, and indeed clubs in our local communities.
Adam Barron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Nobody should go to work never to return home. On Tuesday the 13th of January 2026, Kenny Campbell Smart went to work at Corby Steelworks and never returned home. Now that I've said his name, it'll be written down, recorded in Hansard, and his name will live on forever. Today we're joined in the gallery by Kenny's wife, Sally, and his son Kian, who are determined that no other family should go through what they've been through. In light of this, would the Leader of the House agree with them that we should do all we can to keep people safe at work, and that health and safety isn't red tape, it isn't bureaucracy, it isn't a barrier to growth, it's what keeps people safe at work? And in the name of Kenny, his community, his workplace and his family, we should strengthen these laws so it never happens again.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. First of all, I'm sure the whole House will join me in extending our heartfelt condolences to Sally, Kian and all of Kenny's friends and family. My honourable friend is absolutely right that health and safety in the workplace is not an inconvenience. In workplaces, good health and safety practices do save lives, and I will ensure that the relevant minister writes to him to set out what further action the government intends to take.
John Lamont.
Thank you very much. Nurses are at the heart of our wonderful NHS. I was delighted that 2 nurses from NHS Borders recently gained national recognition by the Royal College of Nursing Scotland. ITU clinical nurse educator Karen Bacon was highly commended in the Learning in Practice Award category, whilst Michelle Brownlee, a healthcare support worker in the intensive therapy unit, was a runner-up in the Nursing Support Worker of the Year award. So will the leader join me in congratulating Karen and Michelle and pass on all of our thanks to our hard-working nursing staff in the NHS?
Deputy Speaker, I will indeed join the honourable gentleman in congratulating Karen and Michelle for their exceptional achievements. He's absolutely right to celebrate the work of all of our wonderful NHS nurses, and I'm sure the whole House will join me in giving them thanks for all the hard work that they do.
Steve Madders.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm sorry to say I've not been able to have the same enthusiasm as the Prime Minister has had in recent days. We have become at odds over a big issue, Arsenal's Premier League victory. But I think I would join with the majority of people in this country in wanting the Champions League final, which Arsenal are participating in, to be a success for English football. So it's very upsetting to see that actually that game will not be available free to air on the TV. And actually, it's a moment for the nation to come together, get behind a great English football team and have victory in Europe. So can the Leader of the House do what he can to ensure that actually we get that game free to air for the nation to enjoy?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My honourable friend is absolutely right that it is right that such matches are available to people to watch for free. And I will raise his concerns with the Secretary of State for TCMS to see if there is anything that can be done.
Sir John Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. With the stealthy silence of knives and the deadly danger of guns in the wrong hands, crossbows cost lives. They cost the life of Louise Hunt and her sister Hannah, as the leader will know, who were murdered by such a weapon. And so I'm delighted that the government announced in March that it is going to ban the sale of crossbows and license new ones. That responds to calls that I made and others across the House made following that awful event. But we've heard little more. All we've heard, in fact, is that the government will consult on the detailed arrangements. No detail, however, of timetable, nothing about means or method. So will the Leader of the House update the House, or by means of a statement by the appropriate minister do so that we can be sure that there will be no hesitation, no obfuscation, no prevarication, for any of those things would cost more lives?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I just want to assure the right honourable gentleman that there will be no hesitation or prevarication, because the government is committed to this. But I would gently say to him, again, having had some experience myself, we can discuss these matters and get to a conclusion and all get to pretty much the same conclusion, but actually implementing it is often more difficult than many people think. And I would say that we shouldn't offer something which doesn't ultimately work. We need to make sure that it has the effect that the honourable members and right honourable members desire. So there is often a delay, but I will draw his remarks to the attention of the relevant minister and see if we can get that update that he seeks.
Jill German.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently had the real pleasure of visiting Denby Youth Shed, led by the inspirational Scott Jenkinson. Youth sheds are youth-led, with young people in leadership roles shaping their own activities, ranging from upcycling old guitars to creating comfort packs for children going into care. The government has recently published the Youth Justice White Paper, where early intervention and improving consistency are clear priorities. Will the Leader of the House agree to a debate in government time on support for community-led youth organisations who are already engaging with our young people, so that ministers can outline how initiatives like youth sheds can access sustainable funding and be expanded across the country?
Very good. Madam Deputy Speaker. My honourable friend is absolutely right to champion the great work of youth sheds and community organisations like them. Their work is vital to support young people in our communities. And as she rightly points out, the Youth Justice White Paper sets out how we can make the justice system fairer and more consistent. I'll draw her attention to her remarks to the attention of the relevant minister and see if we can find time for such a debate.
And before I call for the next question, members should be aware that I'm aiming to finish these business questions around 12:15. So it's unlikely that we're going to get everybody in, even if the questions are very, very short. Rebecca Pound.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would ask whether the Leader of the House would join me in congratulating Jenny Rayner, MBE, who has managed to raise an amazing £2 million for a new wellbeing centre locally to support young people with mental health issues and to get them to a point where they have the support they need before crisis is reached. We in Reigate, Redhill, Banstead and our villagers are so proud of what she has done and achieved in terms of raising this money and supporting our young people. So would you join me in congratulating her?
I'd absolutely join her, Madam Deputy Speaker, in congratulating her. Last week was Mental Health Awareness Week, and it's vital that we continue to raise awareness of the signs and symptoms of depression and other mental health issues in young adults, and the exemplary work of people in our local communities underlines how important this is to keeping young people well.
Sarah Coombs.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Angela and Terry are a couple in my constituency, and they were the proud owners of Otis, a little three-legged Shih Tzu dog.
Angela, who's in her 80s, was walking Otis a few weeks ago when 2 Rottweilers got loose, savaged Otis terribly. Angela took him to the vets, paid thousands of pounds, but sadly Otis died. It's very brave of Angela and Terry to speak out, but the community are up in arms. Please can we have a debate to talk about the owners of dangerous dogs, as it is the owners who are often the problem here, and who pays when one dog attacks another.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I thank my honourable friend for a very important question. This is an upsetting case, and I know other responsible pet owners will also be concerned about attacks in their communities. There are powers, Madam Deputy Speaker, under the Dangerous Dogs Act of 1991 to protect the public. And we've also reconvened the Responsible Dog Ownership Task Force to explore further measures. When those measures are clearer, then I'm sure the House will want to debate them.
Monica Harding. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Would the Leader of the House join me in congratulating Waterham and Hersham Football Club in my constituency, which has secured promotion to the National League South for the first time in its history, having achieved an extraordinary 4 promotions in just 6 seasons. At a time of young people's mental health concerns and online harms, and I know the House will debate this in the future, can we give some time also to supporting grassroots football clubs and sports clubs as a diversion away from online harms and for better mental health, which Waterham and Hersham so well do?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I certainly congratulate the Waltham and Hersham Football Club because, again, like other clubs across our communities, they do such important work. They're at the heart of local communities, and particularly where they offer diversion activities for young people. I think they should be commended. But what she says about the importance of sport in local communities is exactly what the government is trying to do.
Imran Hussain.
Madam Deputy Speaker, last weekend's march saw vile, racist thugs, national figures, openly fanning the flames of hatred against British Muslim communities, saying things like, it's time for many Muslims to leave this country. This is a war. We need to get ready to fight. There are much more vulgar and dangerous statements that I'm unable to repeat in this House. This incitement of hatred and violence against British Muslims in the heart of our capital should worry us all. So can I ask the Leader of the House if he will allow sufficient time for a proper debate to address the dangerously rising levels of Islamophobia, the protections for British Muslim communities, and the consequences for those responsible.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I absolutely condemn any disorder and inappropriate language used, whoever it comes from and whoever it is directed against. But the scenes of last weekend we don't want to see repeated. The government is absolutely determined to bear down on that. We are providing additional resources to protect places of worship, including mosques. The new legislation in the Crime and Policing Act will address large repeated protests, as well as protests outside places of worship. But my honourable friend has been around long enough to know that if he seeks perhaps an adjournment debate on these matters, then he will be amongst many others who will want to similarly raise these concerns.
Dr Andrew Morrison.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in his business statement, the Leader of the House rightly referred to flag-tipping waste criminals. Will he allow for a debate in government time to consider a different sort of waste perpetrated on our constituents, and that is that arising from so-called energy from waste plants, otherwise known as waste incinerators, which of course are more polluting than burning coal and for which the UK is already over-provisioned. We've got too many of these things, they're not wanted, and it's time for a moratorium. Can we have a debate on that?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'll give the right honourable gentleman a commitment that I'll raise it with the relevant ministers and see if we can find some time to debate these matters, should time allow.
Nick Smith.
Madam Deputy Speaker, my constituents continue to face delays in accessing driving tests post-COVID. The government's important consultation covers tackling bot activity, bulk and speculative bookings, and improving access to genuine test slots. Now, a driving instructor in Blaenau Gwent and Rumney has expressed his concerns about potential booking restrictions for driving instructors and issues around examiner recruitment. So can the Transport Minister please update the House and confirm that these issues are going to be considered in the round?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We have doubled the number of trainers for examiners and provided 120,000 additional tests between June of last year and January of this year, and also tightened up the rules on who can actually book and reschedule tests to avoid exploitation by online bots and reselling. But I'll draw my honourable friend's remarks to the attention of a Transport Minister, and either he can seek a meeting with the Minister or indeed we'll get an update from the House.
Chris Law.
Madam Deputy Speaker, may I take this opportunity to congratulate both the SNP in Scotland in a historic 5th landslide election and to Plaid Cymru in a historic win in the Welsh Senate elections, bringing together the north of Ireland, Wales and Scotland has been represented by governments that not only believe in the people, but also unlocking a nation's potential by being independent nations in the future. However, Madam Deputy Speaker, unlike the north of Ireland, which has a legal mandate to hold a referendum on its future, Scotland does not share that legal mandate, and it's a glaring omission in the Scotland Act 1998. So can we have an urgent debate on the constitutional crisis the UK now finds itself in, where Scotland has spoken with the highest ever majority for independence parties, but is denied the democratic route. Sorry, I think we're in a democratic chamber here, but it's denied the democratic route to express the will of the people of Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Government has no plans to change the current position, and let me say to the honourable gentleman that if he's seeking a constitutional crisis, it won't be of our causing; it'll be of the SNP's.
Patricia Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On the 26th of February, I raised with my right honourable friend my fears that the unreliability of the Postal Service might affect constituents in Glasgow West who wish to vote by post in the Scottish Parliament elections. Since then, I've been advised of a situation where a proxy vote application was received some days after the deadline, although the envelope was very clearly postmarked several days before the deadline. Will my right honourable friend assist me in arranging a meeting with the appropriate minister to discuss a simple amendment to the Representation of the People Bill that would grant returning officers limited discretion in such cases?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As my honourable friend will have heard, the representation of the People's Bill we're bringing forward has measures in it to increase the resilience of the proxy and postal voting systems, and that's a constant theme of the Defending Democracy Task Force. But if my honourable friend seeks a meeting with the relevant minister, then I'll help her to arrange one.
David Mundell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I begin by sending my commiserations to the family and friends of Scottish rugby legend Scott Hastings, who died recently at the age of only 61. Scott was an inspirational figure both on and off the pitch. I'm sure the Leader of the House shares my concern about the outbreak of Ebola, which is affecting both the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda at this time, with hundreds of people have already died. Could we have an oral statement when the House returns to hear what the UK is doing in relation to preventing the spread of this outbreak? The UK played a pivotal role in stopping the previous serious outbreak in Sierra Leone, and I'm sure must have much to offer by way of expertise in relation to this one.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and I certainly join the right honourable gentleman in his remarks about Scott Hastings. Rugby is not my sport, but I do recognise very much the contribution that Scott Hastings made, and we send our condolences to his friends and to his family. He raised a very important matter on the outbreak of Ebola. The UK government takes it very seriously indeed. We have, through the NHS, safe procedures in place in any such case of it coming to the UK, and specialist centres that where they can be looked after. But he raises the point about what are we doing to help other countries. The government is reacting quickly, Madam Deputy Speaker, and the Foreign Secretary has announced a further £20 million to help to contain the Ebola outbreak.
Gareth Snell. Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We're not quite alike, but there we are.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the levels of congestion on Wigginton Road are unacceptable. The air quality is affected for residents, people are late for their hospital appointments, and also our whole city is snarled up because the hospital doesn't have a sufficient transport plan. Will he impress on the Secretaries of State for Health and Transport the need for hospital transport plans? And can we have a debate in government time on hospital-induced congestion?
Leader of the House.
My honourable friend is absolutely right to be concerned about traffic and congestion in her constituency. Responsibility for managing traffic on local roads, including those near hospitals, does rest with local authorities, but she's right that it's not just about local authorities, it's about making sure that everyone has a role to play, actually plays that role. So I'll raise it with the relevant Secretary of State as she asks.
Clive Jones.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The National Cancer Plan has many ambitious and urgently needed targets, but these will only be delivered when the government properly invests in the NHS workforce. And healthcare professionals and charities want clarity on when the government will commit to this. So can the leader urge his colleagues in the Department of Health and Social Care to update the House on when the workforce plan will be launched?
Madam Deputy Speaker, he raises an important point. The Government is absolutely committed to making sure that we have the workforce in place to deliver the changes in the NHS that are absolutely necessary in cancer, but in other areas as well, where we're delivering record investment. Waiting lists are down by over 400,000. I think that's the lowest drop for some considerable time, but I will raise his specific concerns about when with the Minister and get him a response.
Emma Lewell.
Madam Deputy Speaker, for years now I've been trying to help a constituent who is subject to repeated identity fraud via their NHS records. Meetings with ministers have been cancelled or refused. Questions and letters to the Home Office, Justice and Health Departments always result in the same response. It's not their responsibility, there's nothing they can do. This is impacting on my constituents' daily life in so many ways. Can my right honourable friend please use his good offices to help?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm sorry to hear of the experiences my honourable friend's constituents. If she lets me have the details, Madam Deputy Speaker, I will raise it with the relevant departments and see if we can get the answers that she seeks.
Sarah Ball.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to raise a case of gift card fraud. My constituent, Nigel Bannister, was recently given for the birthday present a gift card, but by the time he came to redeem it, the money had gone. Now, this is a rising trend where people are going in and taking a photograph and stealing the PIN details and reclaiming it before someone else can. And these are obviously publicly available in the supermarkets. So can I ask for a debate in the government's time about this rising trend, because it caused £18.5 million of loss in the years 23 to 24?
Good question. Deputy Speaker, this is a concerning matter that the honourable lady is absolutely right to raise. I will take it up with the relevant departments to see what level of awareness they have and what they intend to do about this. But should she seek an adjournment debate, then perhaps she can hear directly from a minister.
Michael Wheeler.
Speaker. A recently elected Reform Councillor in my Worsley and Eccles constituency believes the best way to regenerate Eccles, which he described as a problem area, is to turn it into the UK's Dubai. However, it might surprise him that the council has already brought the town centre into public hands, and during the consultation not one single actual resident raised the prospect of debacles. Our communities need regeneration led by genuine involvement of local people, like that being delivered in Brookhouse and Peel Green through Pride in Place. Will the Leader of the House consider a debate on government time to ensure that local people lead in how their towns are regenerated?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My honourable friend is a great champion for regeneration in his area, and his commitment to that stand in stark contrast to the approach of the Reform Council that he refers to. As he will know and the whole House will know, the Government is already taking action to regenerate our high streets with a £5.8 billion Pride in Place funding to deliver for places like Eccles. But I will think about whether or not we can find some time to debate the success of that programme.
Sir Ashley Fox.
Deputy Speaker, in February I asked the Minister of State for Health about access to dentists in rural areas. The Minister said from the dispatch box that he would write to me with the numbers of how many more dental treatments had been provided in my constituency and Integrated Care Board. I was concerned when the Minister replied that Somerset ICB delivered 5,559 fewer NHS dental treatments in the 7 months to October 25 compared to the same period before the election. That is 4% fewer dental treatments in Somerset under Labour. So can we have a statement from the Minister to explain why dental services in Somerset are getting worse under this government?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm not sure the honourable gentleman should necessarily draw that conclusion, because he will be aware that the government is committed to improving access, but he will know that takes some time to turn around the system which we inherited. But he's right that if he gets information from ministers, he should get an update as well on the progress that we're making, and I'll make sure that he gets that from the relevant minister.
Lingham. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would like to pay tribute to Councillor Angela Loughran, who sadly passed away. She first represented the Manor Ward in '97, and for nearly 30 years she tirelessly worked for her residents. She was a true public servant, a previous teacher, and will be greatly missed by her friends, family and the wider Stafford community. Now, in a recent survey of more than 500 residents, 61% cited the return of an indoor market in Stafford as their top priority, and I'm campaigning with residents for that. A lively all-day destination that draws in people from across the town and beyond and will create local jobs. Would the leader grant a debate on the contribution of indoor markets to local economies in towns like Stafford?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I certainly join her in paying tribute to Councillor Angela Loughran. Local figures like her truly embody the spirit of the community that they serve. I also recognise the importance of the issue that she raises for the people of Stafford, and I'd encourage my honourable friend to apply for a Westminster Hall debate on the impact indoor markets can have on local economies, because I'm sure there will be others who will share her enthusiasm and support for them.
Robert Jenrick.
A student on a night out is stabbed multiple times with a 21-centimetre long knife. He's lying in a pool of his own blood, literally drowning in his blood. The police come to the scene. Instead of doing everything that they can to save his life, they handcuff and arrest the lad because there's an accusation of racial abuse. This is a scandal. Will the Home Secretary come to the House and say what she's doing to investigate the way the police conducted this matter? And can we have a debate on two-tier policing, which is doing so much to undermine respect for the police and for the rule of law in this country?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Right Honourable Gentleman raises an important and distressing matter. I assume that it is still an ongoing police investigation, and there are also ways in which the actions of the police, if they are as he describes it, can be investigated too. And I'm not going to comment on that, and I'm not going to interfere in that. But the Home Secretary takes absolutely seriously not just the issue of night crime, but also the protection of citizens, whoever they happen to be.
Justine Sullivan.
Madam Deputy Speaker, last weekend, West Lothian Dance World, founded and led by Hazel Saunders-Dunn, celebrated its 40th birthday with shows at the prestigious Usher Hall in Edinburgh. Dance World has given thousands of young people the chance to showcase their talent, refine their dance skills, build confidence and forge lifelong friendships over the years. Will the Leader of the House join me in congratulating West Lothian Dance World and wish all students and teachers every success for the next 40 years?
Madam Deputy Speaker, absolutely join my honourable friend in congratulating West Lothian Dance World for their remarkable 40th year anniversary. And as she points out, dance is a brilliant way to support young people and ensure that they build their confidence. So I praise not just the students but also their teachers for their commitment, and I wish them every success in the future.
Peter Fortune.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And whilst there's been some talk of the shenanigans of some minor football teams, it would be remiss of me not to mention the mighty Bromley FC, the only English Football League club blessed with a Conservative MP, who have been crowned champions of League Two, probably as a direct result. Madam Deputy Speaker, I recently met with Lorraine and Satvir at one of my surgeries, who are both Vodafone franchise holders and employ a lot of people in the local area. They signed a contract in good faith relating to fluctuation of commission rates. so that when Vodafone cut that commission rate by 50%, they were left out of pocket and they felt that they were treated in bad faith. Could we have a debate looking at franchising regulations?
Speaker, I suggest that the honourable gentleman seeks an adjournment debate, because if that is happening in his constituency, it might be happening elsewhere, and I'm sure there'll be other colleagues who would want to hear from directly from a minister on what the government intends to do.
Serena Brackenridge.
Speaker, will the Leader of the House join me in recognising the remarkable work of the Susan Vickers Foundation, changing lives for care-experienced families by a care-experienced team, and now including free rail travel and cinema access thanks to partnership with L&R, West Midlands Railway and Cineworld? And will he also commend Rethink Mental Illness and all community groups involved at the hub at Wolverhampton Station as they mark their first year helping thousands across our city?
And I'll certainly join my honourable friend in recognising the work of the Susan Vickers Foundation, Rethink Illness and the hub at Wolverhampton Station and everyone else involved. Last week was Mental Health Awareness Week, and this year's theme was action. And charities and community organisations play a huge role in supporting those struggling with mental illness, and I thank everyone involved for their commitment and their service.
Dr Ellie Chowns.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Earlier this month, I was delighted to at last receive a response from the Department for Work and Pensions to a letter I'd written them on the 25th of November last year, raising a constituent's case. More than a 5-month delay when the original acknowledgement had said that they aimed to get back to you within 15 days. These delays are unacceptable, and this is by no means an isolated case, had multi-month delays on several other cases. So, can we have an update, please, from the Leader of the House on what the government is doing to improve departmental complaint processing times so that constituents and MPs can get a response within a reasonable time frame?
Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Lady will know that I'm very keen that departments do respond in time and give full responses to MPs, because that is part of the job that they have. Of course, some departments will find it more difficult to respond because not just because of sometimes the complexity of issues, but also the number of letters and PQs and things that they get on these matters. But I'll draw her remarks to the attention not just of that department, but indeed to other departments as well, because we do constantly remind them of the need to maintain a standard.
Lillian Jones.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. According to a CBI report published in 2025, the contribution of the wood panel industry to the UK economy was at £1.1 billion GVA. Now, given that significant contribution, will my right honourable friend make time for a debate on how the government's industrial strategy will support the UK timber and wood sector, including measures to strengthen domestic supply chains, increase the use of sustainable British timber in construction and support rural jobs and net zero ambitions?
Deputy Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right to raise these matters on behalf of her constituents, but other rural areas as well. I will raise these with the relevant minister and get an update from them on what the government intends by way of progress on this matter.
Alison Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday, the Climate Change Committee laid out in stark terms the risks that we face as a country if we do not tackle the impact of climate change. One of those was drought. This is especially pertinent in mid-Sussex and across the South East, which is extremely water scarce. And South East Water are already warning of their ability to meet the demands of a growing population. Will the Leader of the House make time for debate on how the government intends to reconcile its housing targets with the region's finite water resources?
Madam Deputy Speaker, as the Honourable Lady will know, that the government intends to bring forward a water bill in this session, so she will be able to raise her concerns directly as that legislation is making progress.
Sir Jan Joseph.
Madam Deputy Speaker, Kent Fire and Rescue Services will shortly launch a consultation on the modernisation of its service as a result of a shortfall in funding. As a former public sector worker, I recognise the importance of reforming our emergency services to ensure they remain both effective and efficient. It is equally vital that these services respond to the evolving risks faced by local communities, particularly in rural areas. Could the Leader of the House find time for a debate on the importance of fire and rescue services, their funding and the steps needed to protect provision in rural communities?
Madam Deputy Speaker, my honourable friend raises a very important matter, and I want to take this opportunity to place on record our thanks to firefighters and fire service staff for all the work that they do. He will know that the government is committed to working with the fire sector to make sure that the funding system remains fair and responsive, but I'll make sure that the relevant minister hears his concerns.
Will Forster.
Madam Deputy Speaker, Woking's only brewery, Thurston's, is sadly closing down. The owner, John Mintram, said it's all getting too expensive, people are feeling the squeeze, and you can't sell £8 or £9 pints. Please will the government apologise to the owners and customers of Thurston's of what they've done to the hospitality sector and agree to hold a debate to ensure that they can properly support the brewing and pub sector in the future?
Very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. I don't accept the premise of the honourable gentleman's question, because this government has done a great deal to support the sector and continues to do so. But the hospitality sector knows, and he will know, that the best way in order to help the hospitality sector is to get the economy growing, to make sure that they've got money, people have got money in their pockets in order to go out and spend it in the hospitality sector. And that is the first priority of this government, to make sure that we tackle the cost of living crisis and that we get the economy growing.
Thank you,
Madam Deputy Speaker. Hoarding disorder is a distinct mental health condition, although often confused with OCD. It causes individuals to fill their homes with items they feel unable to discard, even when it causes danger and risks physical injury. In the UK, it is believed that up to 3 million adults suffer from this chronic and progressive condition. So does the Leader of the House agree with me that it is now time to have a national hoarding strategy offering a consistent, comprehensive approach to care, prioritising early intervention and clear pathways for specialist mental health support?
Madam Deputy Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right to raise this matter. The impact of hoarding can be severe. There are no plans for a specific hoarding strategy, but the government has announced plans for a new mental health strategy, which will seek to provide the right support to people with a mental health condition. The call of evidence, Madam Deputy Speaker, is live now, and I'd encourage my honourable friend and others across the House to contribute.
Madam
Deputy Speaker, my young constituent Alex is paralysed after a dreadful road accident a couple of months ago. He wants to return to Loughborough University for his third-year studies as soon as possible. He's been told by the wheelchair services team that he has to have a 27-kilogram wheelchair to start with, then have a different one, and that's what everyone gets, even though he'll never have the strength to operate it himself, as it's too heavy. The staff know this, Alex knows this, his parents know it, but there seems to be no way to stop the madness and waste to get him a wheelchair that meets his needs. So can I ask the Leader of the House, please, to speak to the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care to review the NHS wheelchair policy so patients have appropriate equipment from the outset, rather than wasting money and time and causing patients and their families such unnecessary distress?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm sorry to hear of the experiences of Alex, because the government wants to see a situation where individuals get the support that they need, not just generalised support. So I hope that the people that make these decisions are listening to what the Honourable Lady has said, but also I will draw it to the attention of the Minister to get an update on what the government is prepared to do on this.
David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Recently, I attended an incredibly informative SEND roundtable organised by PEGIS, that is the Parent Engagement Group in Stoke-on-Trent. As we know, in this place, we make our best policy when we listen to people who have real lived experience. Therefore, would the Leader of the House please join me in recognising the incredible work of Michelle and the PEGIS team, who have worked tirelessly for many, many years to ensure the voices of families are heard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I certainly join my honourable friend in recognising the incredible work of Michelle and the Parent Engagement Group in Stoke for their work making sure that the voices of families are heard. This government is absolutely committed to making sure the SEND system works for every child, and our Education for All bill announced in the King's Speech will make sure that every child is able to thrive.
Thank
you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Honourable members will remember the harrowing images of 3-year-old Aylan Kurdi, who was found lying dead on a beach in Turkey after drowning when the boat that he and his family were on sunk. A Reform candidate at the 7th of May elections described that situation as blaming it on his parents' greed. He was very close to winning, but today East Sussex Conservatives have done a deal that have allowed Reform to take control of East Sussex County Council, despite Eastbourne voting against that. Will the leader grant an urgent debate on how towns like Eastbourne can be governed by those that it actually votes for?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm appalled to hear of the comments of the Reform candidate. And as for the coming together with the local Conservative group in order to run the council, I just advise both of them, be careful who you get into bed with.
Melanie Ward.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And there's been some talk about football, but what I think we should actually all be celebrating is the glorious victory of Wraith Rovers in the Challenge Cup. Madam Deputy Speaker, results from a survey of Burnt Island residents that I've conducted suggest that 87% of people experience difficulties using Burnt Island Station due to the lack of step-free access. For railway users across my constituency, including in Cowdenbeath and Kinghorn, who face similar barriers, this is unacceptable and makes life harder for those with mobility issues, luggage, buggies and bikes. Does the Leader of the House agree with me that Network Rail should prioritise accessibility upgrades at these stations, and will he make time for a debate on railway accessibility?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Government is absolutely committed to improving the accessibility of the railway, including through the Access for All programme. And I'm sure Network Rail will have heard my honourable friend's comments. The Railways Bill also includes legal requirements to ensure that the interests of passengers, including those with accessibility needs, will be at the heart of decision-making on the railways. And I'm sure my honourable friend will want to make her voice heard during the passage of that bill.
Madam Deputy Speaker, during a recent visit to DHL in my constituency of Runcorn and Helsby, I heard yet again about the growing financial burden of the Merseyflow bridge tolls on those travelling to work. DHL wants to expand its operation in Runcorn and double its workforce, but is struggling to attract people because the bridge tolls have become a costly barrier to employment and economic growth. Will the Leader of the House agree to a debate on the economic impact of the bridge tolls in communities like Runcorn and Helsby?
Deputy Speaker, the Government is absolutely clear that we want to see the economy grow and companies grow, and nothing should get in the way of that. But I will draw her remarks to the attention of the Transport Minister. But she might also want to seek an adjournment debate where she can hear directly from the Minister.
And with the final question, Lawrence Turner.
Much, Madam Deputy Speaker. In Birmingham Northfields and across the country, many reports of inappropriate HMOs prove to actually be poor quality supported exempt accommodation. At their best, SEAs can provide a valuable service, but at their worst, they can be a byword for neglect, antisocial behaviour, exploitation and serious organised crime. So please, can parliamentary time be found so that we can discuss the need to bring forward that proper regulation and end the unacceptable blight on many of our constituents' lives?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I thank my honourable friend for raising the issue of HMOs, matter which has been raised with me on a number of occasions. Local authorities do have the planning powers to limit the proliferation of HMOs, but we do keep regulations under review. I'll give consideration to his request for time for a debate, but I'll also make sure that the relevant minister hears his comments today and gives him an update urgently.
And that concludes business questions. I have got a list of members who were unsuccessful in catching my eye today, but can I just ask members to reflect on the length of the questions that they're asking? It's really difficult to get everybody in with such long questions. We now move on to the statement, and before we come to the statement, I'll just let the Chancellor get in her place. And before we come to the statement, I have to say to the Chancellor that Mr Speaker has checked the Ministerial Code, and it makes clear that important policy announcements should be made in the first instance in this House when it is sitting. This House and its members should be the first to know what the government is doing, not TikTok. Posting videos on social media announcing new policies before informing this House is not in line with the government's own rules. This is a new parliamentary session and ministers must do better. I now call on the Chancellor. Chancellor.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And with permission, I will make a statement on the government's economic response to the war in Iran and the action that we are taking to support families and businesses with rising costs. Madam Deputy Speaker, the government has the right economic plan. I said I would grow the economy, and last week the Office for National Statistics confirmed that Britain's economy was the fastest growing in the G7 for the first quarter of this year. We beat the Office for Budget Responsibility's forecast in the spring, with economic growth at 0.6% in the 3 months to March. And because of the resilience of our economy, this week the International Monetary Fund upgraded Britain's forecast for this year. I said I would cut borrowing. Borrowing last year was £20 billion lower than the previous year, and the latest forecasts show it falling in every year of this Parliament. The IMF has backed our economic plan, saying that the government's fiscal framework strikes, and I quote, a good balance between deficit reduction and growth-friendly spending. I said I would cut the cost of living. Since the election, interest rates have been cut 6 times. Real wages have continued to rise in every single month since I became Chancellor. And yesterday, the ONS confirmed that inflation fell in April faster than expected, making the UK the only G7 economy where inflation fell last month. Madam Deputy Speaker, we have the right economic plan, but the conflict in the Middle East poses a significant challenge to the world's economy, including our own. I have not shied away from my criticism of the war. I believe it to have been a mistake. Nor have I ignored the costs that it will bring to bear on the British people. I have been clear-eyed about my duty to do what I can to support families and businesses, to be responsive to a changing world and responsible in the national interest. Next week, Ofgem will confirm the level of the energy price cap that will apply from July. I know that any increase will be felt by families. Because of the decision that I made at the budget last year to cut £150 from energy bills, we have lessened the impact of rising prices, and current external forecasts suggest that the cap from July will be at a similar level to the cap in April last year. We stand ready to act if market conditions worsen significantly later this year, and I have been leading cross-government contingency work on design of potential future targeted and temporary support. For businesses, any support will also need to be carefully targeted at firms most exposed to the crisis. But while many firms have been insulated from recent price rises through fixed-price contracts, there are sectors that face particular structural issues related to energy costs. That is why we have already increased support for our most energy-intensive industries through the British Industry Competitiveness Scheme, and we've brought that forward. And it is why we have also built resilience in our critical infrastructure and industrial strategy sectors, where supply chains are critical for growth and security. Following representations from my right honourable friends, the members for Redcar, Mid Cheshire and Bathgate Linlithgow, and building on the good work of the Minister for Industry, I am today establishing a £350 million critical chemicals resilience fund to support strategically important producers. And having listened to my right honourable honourable friends, including the members for Stoke-on-Trent Central, North and South, and my honourable friend, the member for Amber Valley, and workers represented by the GMB Union, I am today announcing a new £120 million fund to help our historic ceramics sector, helping them to increase efficiency and drive down energy costs, because we will always stand up for British industry and for British jobs. The government has also this week set out additional targeted support for those businesses most exposed to rising fuel costs. For hauliers, the government is granting a 12-month road tax holiday for HGVs, saving the typical heavy lorry up to £912. To support farmers and the rail freight industry, I have decided to cut duty on red diesel by over a third until the end of this year. And having heard from my honourable friend, the member for Oldham West, Chadderton and Royton, and the trade union Unison, I can today announce a 10p per mile increase in tax-free mileage rates, backdated to April 2026, benefiting those who need to drive for work, from care workers to plumbers. Madam Deputy Speaker, when a country faces challenges because of higher oil and gas prices, we must ensure that those who benefit from increased prices and volatility pay their fair share. In my first budget, I extended and increased the Energy Profits Levy. Last year, I announced a new permanent windfall tax regime on oil and gas prices. Last month, I increased the Electricity Generator Levy, alongside further action to weaken the link between high gas prices and electricity prices. Today, I am bringing forward specific changes to the taxation of foreign branch profits, changing how companies are taxed in relation to their overseas activities. Currently, some oil and gas groups that operate overseas through foreign branches have structured their tax affairs in a way which ensures they pay little or no corporation tax on their UK energy trading profits. Today, we are putting an end to that practice. We expect these reforms to raise hundreds of millions of pounds a year and fund the package of measures set out today, with costings certified by the OBR forecast in the usual way. Madam Deputy Speaker, I know the pressure that family finances are under. That is why I have already taken action to provide help. I increased the national living wage and the national minimum wage to their highest rates ever. I have frozen prescription charges for 2 years in a row, and I've frozen rail fares for the first time in 30 years. I've taken £150 off energy bills, which contributed towards the fall in inflation last month. But I want to go further, and today I am taking further action to ease the burden on family finances. First, on fuel duty. I have already extended the 5p cut twice since the election, and I can confirm today that there will be no rise in fuel duty this year, recognising the pressure that the war has put on fuel prices. Second, I know that the cost of the weekly shop is often one of the biggest worries for families. So last month, I met with supermarkets to urge them to do all they can to keep prices low. And today, I am taking action by suspending tariffs on over 100 different foods sold in supermarkets. And I am clear that I expect supermarkets to pass these savings on in full to their customers. And third, I will not tolerate any company exploiting the current situation to make excess profits at consumers' expense. So I am bringing forward tough new powers so that the Competition and Markets Authority and other regulators can take action when firms break the rules. Fourth, for many families, driving is not always an option. Buses are the most popular form of public transport in Britain, with over 4 billion journeys made last year. I have already extended the £3 bus fare cap to March 2027, and today I can confirm that bus travel across England will be free for children aged between 5 and 15 throughout August. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I recognise that what matters for families is not just getting by, but being able to enjoy time together without worrying about the next bill. That is why I am launching the Great British Summer Savings Scheme to help families and support our hospitality sector. So I can today announce a temporary cut in the rate of VAT on summer attractions from 20% to 5% over the summer holidays. This will apply to ticket prices for both adults and children, covering attractions such as fairs, theme parks, zoos and museums. It will include children's tickets for cinemas, concerts, soft play and the theatre. And it will cut the cost of children's meals in restaurants and cafes from 20% VAT to 5% as well. These changes will apply across the UK, from the start of the Scottish school holidays on the 25th of June and run until the end of school holidays in England, Wales and Northern Ireland on the 1st of September. Madam Deputy Speaker, this government has the right economic plan. We promised to grow the economy, and we have. We promised to cut inflation, and we have. And we promised to cut the cost of living, and we are. Promises made by a Labour government, promises delivered by a Labour government, and I commend this statement to the House.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And could I thank the Chancellor for advance sight of her statement, though, of course, the press got even more advance sight of it. Madam Deputy Speaker, the decision taken to cancel the increase in fuel duty is welcome. It has been a long time coming. The Conservative Party has been campaigning against the fuel duty rise for months, but the Chancellor has defended that policy repeatedly. That left motorists and businesses worried about even higher fuel prices in September. It was always obvious that the fuel duty increase would need to be cancelled, obvious to everyone except the Chancellor. So can I ask, why did the Chancellor fight us on fuel duty for so long? Why has she been so hell-bent on raising fuel duty during an energy crisis? Well, inevitably, Madam Deputy Speaker, the U-turn has finally come. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is astonishing to hear the Chancellor claiming that the government can afford to help households because the forecasts have improved. Is the Chancellor seriously suggesting that the economic outlook is now better than at the time of the last fiscal forecasts, when we have had the Iran conflict, to which our economy is highly exposed thanks to this government's ruinous choices? The Chancellor has just pointed to the IMF forecast being upgraded this week. But let's be very clear about what is going on here. The IMF adjusted their growth forecast for this year up slightly to 1%. But until April, they were forecasting 1.3%. So where exactly is the supposed growth dividend? Will she directly address that point? This is exactly the same game that the government played last year when they U-turned on cuts to the winter fuel payment. They claimed then they were U-turning because the economy was improving, when of course it was due to political pressure. Nobody brought it then, and nobody is buying it now. Once again, we have a weak government caving into the inevitable after spending months defending a truly terrible decision. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor claims the measures announced today will be funded by a number of different tax measures. But most of the measures she mentions are already in place and baked into the OBR's forecasts. So given the Chancellor has not announced any measures to control government spending, can she confirm that, in fact, the measures she is announcing today will be funded at least in part by yet more government borrowing? And can she confirm whether fuel duty rates will still be rising to the same level as previously planned after December, or whether today's announcement will mean a permanent reduction in fuel duty? Madam Deputy Speaker, whilst we on this side of the House welcome some of the measures the Chancellor has taken today, like the increase in mileage allowances, this is all very minor compared to the inflation this government have fuelled since coming into office, and the tax rises that the Chancellor has imposed. Today's announcements will bring little comfort to hundreds of thousands of people who have lost their jobs, to the countless businesses that have folded, and to those high streets which are now hollowed out. The reality is that we are in a terrible position to deal with the consequences of this latest energy crisis, thanks to the actions that this government has taken. The Chancellor claimed growth is up. It is actually down. She claimed borrowing is down. It's 75% up compared to the plans that she inherited. She claimed she's fighting inflation. We have the highest inflation in the G7. She claimed she's cutting energy bills. Energy bills have gone up under this Labour government. And of course, she didn't mention unemployment.
Why?
On the energy, Madam Deputy Speaker, on energy, this government have made a conscious decision not to exploit our own natural resources in the North Sea, weakening our economy and our energy security, whilst importing oil from Putin's Russia at the cost of Ukrainian lives. Families and businesses are facing rising costs and rising taxes. People are losing their jobs. The country is hurting. If the Chancellor was serious about the challenges we face, she would commit to getting spending down, tackling the benefits bill, getting taxes down to strengthen our economy. But thanks to the Chancellor's mistakes and the weakness of this dying government, this statement today is all we get. Does the Chancellor really think this is enough?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let me take the issues that the Shadow Chancellor has raised. First of all, on fuel duty. When I became Chancellor of the Exchequer, the freeze in fuel duty was due to expire under the plan set out in the final budget of the Conservatives within a matter of months. I've frozen fuel duty twice already, and I've frozen it again today. And indeed, I've frozen it with more than 3 months to go before the increase was due to happen, giving people plenty of time. I have always said, since the Middle East conflict began, that I would keep an eye on what was happening to oil and gas prices and set out plans ahead of the change due to come to effect in September, and that is exactly what I've done. But I've also gone further in 3 specific areas, with additional support for hauliers, additional support for red diesel, particularly helping the rail, freight industry and farmers, and also the higher mileage rates. And the Shadow Chancellor says he welcomes the changes on mileage rates. Well, it's the first time they've been increased since 2011. So if he welcomes them so much, why didn't they increase them when they had 14 years in government? On the Iran conflict, well, let's remember that this is a war that the UK did not start, that this government chose not to join, whereas the Conservatives and Reform were cheering on that conflict every step of the way. And the impacts on the UK economy and the global economy would be much more severe if we'd have heeded the warnings of, heeded the pleas of Reform and Conservatives to join that conflict. The Shadow Chancellor talks about inflation and growth. Well, inflation, yesterday, the numbers showed that inflation had fallen. We're the only country in the G7 where inflation fell last month. The IMF have revised up our growth forecast, and we had the fastest growth of the G7 in the first quarter of this year. And the Shadow Chancellor says, is this going to be paid for with new borrowing? No, it's not. If the Shadow Chancellor had been listening, he would have heard the changes we're making around the foreign branch exemption. That will raise hundreds of millions of pounds a year, which is why we're able to afford the package that we have announced today. The Shadow Chancellor mentions high streets. Well, because of the Pride in Place money that I announced at the budget, because of the banking hubs, and indeed because of the changes we made to business rates, which have actually seen business rates for retail and hospitality come down, and come down significantly compared to the plans we inherited from the Conservative government, we can reinvigorate our high streets. The Shadow Chancellor mentions borrowing. Well, borrowing has fallen below 5% for the first time since 2019 because of the actions that I have taken as Chancellor, and borrowing is expected to fall in every year of this Parliament. Very different from what happened under the Conservatives. Employment and activity remain in the top half of the OECD and of the G7. And the biggest benefits boom came under the last Conservative government when the Shadow Chancellor was the Work and Pensions Secretary. And on oil and gas will play an important role in our economy for many years to come. But we also need to invest in renewable energy, which is why we announced yesterday restrictions in the number of judicial reviews that are holding up investment in clean energy. It is a shame that the Conservatives voted against our Planning and Infrastructure Act. It's a shame that the Liberal Democrats abstained on it. But we are determined to get Britain building, including the energy infrastructure we need to get bills down. And just just a couple of weeks ago, I announced changes around tiebacks to make it easier for oil and gas companies to exploit their reserves of oil and gas in the North Sea. And Jackdaw and Rosebank would have gone ahead if it hadn't been for the last government messing up the way it legislated. And we are going to be announcing shortly the decisions. The Secretary of State for Energy and Net Zero will make those decisions. But I am very clear. Oil and gas will play an important role in the UK for many years to come, adding to our energy security alongside investment in nuclear, in small modular reactors, in floating offshore wind, in onshore wind and solar, opposed by the party opposite.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, it never fails to amaze me that the Shadow Chancellor tries to lecture this government on inflation when many of us were here in September 22 when his party crashed the economy. I welcome my right honourable friend's interventions, and I'm particularly interested in the cut in VAT in the leisure sector. And I hope that she will be commissioning a full study from the Exchequer Secretary about the impact on this, because it could be a great way to fuel and promote and keep going our stretched leisure and hospitality sector. So will she commit to that?
I absolutely agree with my right honourable friend that we'll take no lessons from the party opposite on inflation when it reached more than 11% when they were last in office. In terms of VAT on the leisure sector, we are making these changes from the 25th of June right until the 1st of September to help boost the hospitality sector, but also to help families, crucially to help families during the summer. Our expectation is that this will cost taxpayers money, but it is funded through the changes we're making around the foreign branch exemption so that companies can't book losses overseas to avoid paying their fair share of corporation tax here in Britain.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I do feel as though we're slightly through the looking glass. For 6 months, we Liberal Democrats have been calling for an emergency temporary VAT cut for hospitality, leisure and attractions, and our pledge was fully funded. For weeks, we have been calling for an emergency transport package, fully funded using the additional revenue from higher VAT rates and the EPL levy as well. But for all this time, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have been told repeatedly that it was impossible to do these things, that there was no additional money. And somehow, the prospect of a by-election in Makerfield and the Prime Minister's political life on the line means that the money has now been found. But let me ask the Chancellor 2 questions. First of all, on food. I genuinely welcome the government's focus on the cost of food, because this is an issue of huge concern to many of our constituents in all political parties here. But can I please ask the Chancellor whether there is any risk at all that short-term gain may result in any long-term pain? By looking at these tariffs, has the Chancellor had any conversations with the food manufacturing industry about whether they can remain competitive, whether there's any risk that removing these tariffs might inadvertently undermine our food manufacturing sector, and if there is any risk, whether she would look at our plans for a good food bill and promoting nature-friendly farming? And I ask that question in the spirit of constructive opposition. And secondly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor and her ministers will know that we are due to have a very hot summer. And that means that outdoor attractions will have huge demand because children will want to be outside in this hot weather. Indoor attractions, such as soft play centres, will not benefit so much because there won't be much demand in the summer months, but there will be demand in the winter months. And so could I ask the Chancellor to look very carefully at the differences within the attraction sector, because children are priced out of play when they need to go indoors in the winter months, not so much in the summer months. Thank you.
I thank the Honourable Lady for those questions. I'm not sure whether she welcomes the changes around the foreign branch exemption or not, which is what is going to pay for these policies today, ensuring that companies pay their fair share of tax here in the UK. But it is important that we always say where the money is going to come from, because unless you can do that, all it results in is higher inflation and interest rates in the future. And that's why I've always been clear that everything I will announce is always going to be fully costed and fully funded. On food, you can't say you both welcome and think that we need to help with the cost of living, but then you're a bit uncertain about tariff reductions. But we have focused these tariff reductions on food products, agri-foods, that we don't produce in significant quantities in the UK, and we've worked very closely with the Department for Business and Trade in identifying those sectors. On the issue of summer activities, indoor and outdoor, well, I've had enough family holidays in the UK to know that there are plenty of days when it's raining, and I'm sure that the leader of the Liberal Democrats will be visiting a soft play centre soon.
Gareth Snell.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I declare my chairmanship of the APPG for ceramics? Can I thank the Chancellor for today's announcement, and can I also thank the work done by the Right Honourable Member for Hove and Portslade and the Minister from Stockton North for their support. This is a really big step towards support for a sector that offers so much to this country. And can I thank Sharon Yates and Finbar Barry from the GMB, as well as Rolf Rollo and Hannah Roll from Ceramics UK for their leadership in this. But could I extract from the Chancellor a commitment that this is the next stage of a new partnership between the UK Government and UK Ceramics, because today's announcement will absolutely help us survive. But with more working together, we can thrive as a sector and do our bit to boost exports, boost growth, and create well-paid unionised jobs in this country.
I genuinely want to pay tribute to my honourable friend for the work that he's done on behalf of businesses and working people in his own constituency. And along with the other Stoke MPs, the MP for Newcastle-under-Lyme and the MP for Amber Valley, you've made the case powerfully and convincingly. And I can absolutely commit today to work with Ceramics UK, the GMB and the MPs and the wider sector to make sure that the ceramics industry does indeed thrive in the UK.
Stuart Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On the tariffs, I want to explore what the Chancellor said on significant quantities, because what is a significant quantity for a supermarket can be a completely different scale for a small South Shropshire farmer. Can the Chancellor guarantee that no South Shropshire farmers are going to be undercut by these tariffs, and none of the supermarkets will pass on these cost cuts to British farmers?
It is really important that we help our constituents with the cost of living, and the tariff reductions that I've announced today will save the British shopper £700 million. That is a significant reduction in the cost of the weekly shop for families across our country. But we've carefully chosen these tariff lines, and the full details will be published. We'll be consulting over the next week or two to make sure that we get these exactly right, but we've worked hard to make sure that this does not affect British farmers, and it's also indeed why we're helping British farmers with the changes we've made around red diesel today.
John Grady.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome my right honourable friend's statement. It's great news for the cafes and restaurants in my constituents, of which there are many, and to the showmen. There are very many showmen and women who run Scotland's and Britain's great fairs as well. I know the party opposite object to all of this. It is the party opposite that left us with debt to GDP of almost 100%. And there's nothing progressive in running debt levels like that, and the Chancellor is right to focus on paying that debt off. Many of my constituents in Glasgow East rely on cars and vans to get to work and do their work. They face extortionate charging for parking in town with the SNP Council, which is utterly anti-car, and regular bills for repairing their cars and vans from all the potholes. Would my right honourable friend set out how she is helping hard-pressed car and van drivers in Glasgow?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and he's absolutely right. There is nothing progressive about piling up the debt that future generations will have to pay, and that is why our fiscal rules are getting the debt and the deficit down, whilst also enabling us to invest in our country's infrastructure and public services. In terms of helping people with the cost of driving, we have frozen fuel duty until the end of this year, but recognising that some people rely on their cars cars and their vans more than others. We have also taken off the HGV tax for this year, saving HGV drivers up to just over £900 a year. We have cut the duty on red diesel by more than a third, and for those people employed and self-employed, we've increased the tax-free mileage rates to help them with the cost of fuel too.
Dr Andrew Mirison.
Deputy Speaker, the announcement on red diesel will be welcomed by my farming constituents, and they will await details on the tariffs that she has cited with a great deal of interest and with a certain amount of trepidation. But will she acknowledge that a third of the world's fertilisers pass through the Strait of Hormuz, and the increase in the price of that fertiliser is bound to have an impact on British agriculture and therefore on prices in the shops? So what will she do to relieve some of that, in some cases existential pressure on farms in the United Kingdom?
I thank the honourable gentleman for that question, and I would urge him and also businesses, farmers in his constituency to look at the list of products and make sure that feed into the consultation over the next week or so. We are obviously keen to bring these tariff reductions into effect to reduce the prices in the shops for all of our constituents, but we want to do it in a way that is respectful of British farming, which is why we've chosen the tariff lines that we have. And we are, as the honourable gentleman recognises, doing more to support farmers with the reduction in red diesel. The best way, though, that we can help all of our constituents and the farming sector and others is to bring this conflict to an end and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is why the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary are working intensively with international partners to do just that, and at the same time working to diversify our supply of oil and gas so that that fertiliser that the honourable gentleman rightly refers to is still available for our farmers.
Lindsay Farnsworth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Chancellor honestly for her statement. As she has mentioned, and many members of this House will be aware, I've been campaigning hard for the ceramics sector with a view to saving Denby pottery. And I want to thank the Ministers in the Treasury and Department for Business and Trade for their ongoing engagement through the many meetings that we've had on this point. So I'm delighted to hear about the £120 million support package today. This is a clear indication that the government is supporting and backing UK ceramics, and it will make Denby pottery a more attractive prospect for any potential investors. But with this in mind, the current circumstances that Denby pottery faces, can the Chancellor please commit to ensuring that the funding is available as soon as possible in the hope that Denby can be saved?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, but most of all for all the work that she does on behalf of all of her constituents, but particularly those at the moment impacted by what is happening at Denby. It was my privilege to come to Amber Valley with my honourable friend just last year to meet businesses from across her constituency. We are backing UK ceramics. We want to find a future for Denby, and we will continue to work with my honourable friend to achieve just that.
Alistair Carmichael.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I remind the House of my entry in the Register of Members' Interests. Last year, Madam Deputy Speaker, suckler beef farmers in my constituency were getting paid £7.30 per kilo for their finished product on the hook. Yesterday that was down to £5.75 and it is still falling. The price paid to dairy farmers for their milk is through the floor. Arable farmers are struggling after 2 catastrophically bad harvests. The red diesel cut is welcome, but that will not help farmers who are struggling with rocketing prices for fertiliser, or indeed those who are requiring to heat glass houses. Opening the door to ever wider to food imports risks undermining domestic food production. So if food security genuinely is national security, surely our food producers and manufacturers should have access to the same support as other critical sectors. So will the Chancellor look again now at adding food and drink to the government's industrial strategy so that they can have access to the same support as other sectors?
I thank the honourable gentleman for that question, and I know as chair of the Select Committee he'll play a key role in scrutinising what the government are doing. Red diesel will have an immediate and important impact on the costs for farmers, with a reduction of more than a third in the rate of duty. I also appreciate the fact that his party, like the government, did not support the conflict in the Middle East and recognised that it was a mistake that would have an impact on businesses here at home. And that's why we are doing everything within our power, both to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to ease these pressures on consumers and businesses, including farmers, but also in the meantime to diversify supply and opening up new refining facilities in the UK to help businesses, including farmers, during these challenging times.
Dr Alison Gardner.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and the Potteries welcome this statement today. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have been working with local companies, with the TUC, GMB and research organisations to develop proposals to support the ceramics industry to innovate, improve energy efficiency and decarbonise. And I have previously called on the government to release an industrial energy innovation fund for energy-intensive industries, with government grants to explore process efficiency and new technologies, as well as vouchers to access shared pilot facilities. Could the Chancellor therefore clarify that part of the £120 million funding announced today could be used by ceramics companies to access and invest in innovations such as AI-enabled process optimisation and energy technologies to help reduce energy bills?
I thank my honourable friend and all the MPs involved in helping put together this scheme of support for ceramics, and, like my honourable friend, welcome the work of the TUC and GMB in this. Look, innovation and ensuring that the industry is sustainable and competitive for the future is absolutely essential. This isn't just a sticking plaster policy. This is about setting up the industry for the future, including investment in innovation and R&D, and also the diversification of energy supplies.
Kirsty Blackman.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. In oil and gas jobs, the UK is losing 1,000 jobs a month. The Chancellor is aware of this, and we have made it very clear to her that we are keen to move to the OGPM as soon as possible. We would urge her to do that. In the foreign branch profits section of the announcement today, would the Chancellor let us know whether or not they have modelled the job losses that may occur as a result of this change in policy, and if she can tell the House how many job losses she thinks might occur because of this change in the oil and gas taxation regime?
I thank the honourable lady for her question, and like I've said in previous answers, I recognise the role of oil and gas in the UK and its importance to the UK for many years to come, which is why we have changed the rules around tiebacks and why we've put in place a permanent mechanism for taxing windfall profits. But look, the honourable lady has to answer the question, is she in favour, and is her party in favour of the foreign branch profits exemption or not? Because if she's not, then she can't can't back the support we're giving today to help people with the cost of living and the support that we're giving for ceramics today. But in terms of what this does, it means that we are moving in line to how other countries treat foreign profits. Because at the moment, you've got the absurd situation where losses overseas can mean that businesses avoid paying their fair share of corporation tax in the UK. This moves us in line with what other countries world do. It is closing a tax loophole, and the honourable lady and the Conservatives should welcome that.
David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and what a day to be a Stokey. As the Chancellor knows, my mum proudly works in the pot banks of Tunstall and Burslem, and 10 weeks ago I asked the Prime Minister in this place what support the government could offer our ceramic sector. Well, the good news is my mum's watching again right now at home. And she's clearly happy because I've had a free-word text, and it says, "Nice one, Duck." So can I ask the Chancellor how we will make sure the £120 million support package benefits ceramics companies of every size, from our Moorcross to our Moorlands, from our steel arts to our Churchills, so that we protect jobs, skills and the future of our economy?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for that question. And can I say to Mrs Williams and all those who work in the ceramics sector, I'm proud to be the Chancellor that is backing British industry and British jobs.
Ben Oxojecti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Back in March, the Chancellor announced the £50 million Crisis and Resilience Fund to help families out with the price of heating oil, which is a big issue in rural constituencies such as mine in Huntingdon. Does she have any plans to extend that scheme or to repeat that scheme come the autumn, given that we are likely to have a similar crisis with the Strait of Hormuz still being shut? And to what extent does she anticipate that the Russian oil that will come via a third country under Commodity Code 2710 will form part of that fuel mix?
Yesterday, we introduced the toughest set of sanctions that this country has ever had on Russia. But like the previous government, we are phasing those in so it doesn't have a disproportionate impact on industry here in the UK. That is what the previous government did, and that is what we are doing as well. The honourable gentleman mentions heating oil and support for people. We were pleased to be able to introduce that targeted support based particularly in those areas that are particularly dependent on heating oil. We're doing a piece of work at the moment to see how much money has been used by local authorities. I know that some have been more proactive than others in ensuring that local residents get the support they need. Once we've completed that, we will look at whether and what further support is needed.
Adam Jurgey.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome this statement and the action that those of us in ceramic communities have been calling for, and I thank the Chancellor for announcing it. This is a good day for all of us in North Staffordshire, Madam Deputy Speaker. There is a ceramics business, as it happens, from Newcastle. I'm sitting in the gallery watching this statement, so I welcome them, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I ask the Chancellor to assure us two things? One, that the eligibility for the support in this scheme will be as wide as possible, and that it will be as easy as possible to apply for.
Well, I'm pleased to know that a business from Newcastle under Lyme from the ceramics sector is here today. And I say to them directly, this government has got your back and wants to work with you and the trade unions that represent people in the sector to ensure that the ceramics industry plays an important part in British life, particularly in those pottery communities for many years to come. And of course, we'll be setting out the details of the scheme. But like the MPs for Stoke, Newcastle and also Amber Valley, this government is very keen to crack on with the scheme and make sure that businesses can get the support that they deserve.
Yeah. David Mundell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Could the Chancellor expand on her discussions with the supermarkets and their role in keeping prices down? Because there is always a concern that when the supermarkets make special offers or reduce prices, rather than absorb the cost of doing that themselves, they pass those on directly to farmers and their suppliers, who are not in a position to absorb those costs because of the fixed costs that they are required to make in terms of their production costs.
The honourable gentleman makes a really important point. Today, I've set out a number of measures that will directly help the supermarkets reduce their costs. And it's really important that those cost reductions are passed on directly to consumers. So reducing the cost of running an HGV will have a direct impact on our supermarkets. Reducing tariffs will have a direct impact on the costs of our supermarkets. And also the trade deal that we're looking to do with the EU to reduce the costs of importing food from the EU will have a direct impact on the cost of supermarkets. I say to the supermarkets, those cost reductions must be passed on directly to consumers who are struggling with the cost of living given the conflict in the Middle East.
Adam Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor for her statement, and particularly given her VAT cut on theme park tickets, first invite her and all honourable members to join me on my annual trip to Alton Towers this summer. Madam Deputy Speaker, Erewash has many great summer events as well for families to enjoy, like Long Eaton Carnival and the Classic Car Show and the Glow Festival in Ilkeston. But entertaining kids during the summer months can be daunting and expensive for parents. Can the Chancellor elaborate then, please, on how measures she is announcing today will support Erewash families and boost great community events?
My only worry with this package, it will ensure that children badger their parents even more for those days out over the summer, and I slightly worry about what I've unleashed in my own household. But I'm pleased to announce today that trips to Alton Towers and other activities, whether it be soft play, fun fairs, zoos and museums, if many kids want to go to those, not mine probably, sadly, will be cheaper this summer because of the action that this government is taking.
Robert Jenrick.
Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor's approach to the cost of living crisis is to find small ways to subsidise people's costs. Isn't the best solution to build a strong, abundant economy by doing the hard yards of supply-side reforms, where there are better jobs and higher wages, where people are richer and the state has less bearing on their lives? And yet, under the Chancellor, the benefits bill is ballooning, unemployment is rising, particularly amongst the young, and taxes are at their highest ever level. So in the spirit of giving people some relief today, will the Chancellor confirm that, assuming she intends to stay in office for the rest of this Parliament, she won't be increasing taxes on working people at all for the rest of this Parliament?
I will take absolutely no lessons from the man who was part of a party that took our economy to its knees. Inflation at 11%, working people worse off at the end of the last Parliament than they were at the beginning, the worst Parliament ever for living standards, and for a party that has opposed all of the reforms that we have made to make it easier to get things built in Britain, to increase the wages of working people with the national living wage and the national minimum wage, to increase the rights of working people, including statutory sick pay from day one, and ending the abusive zero-hour conflicts. So if we want a lesson on economics, I certainly won't be taking it from the Reform Party.
Josh Newbury.
Speaker, the Chancellor's announcement of a £120 million support package for ceramics will, of course, be welcomed in Stoke-on-Trent, but also in Rugeley, in my constituency, which is home to many workers of the Armitage Shanks factory in the constituency of my honourable friend, the member for Lichfield, who is a staunch advocate for them. Would the Chancellor agree with me that it is only this Labour government that is putting in the investment that firms like Armitage Shanks need? And would she agree with me that iconic British brands like this should play a central role in new homes to boost them even further?
Yeah. I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I'm pleased that people in Rugeley and people working for Armitage Shanks will also benefit from this investment. £120 million to support our ceramics sector is a clear intention of this government to back British jobs and British industry.
Afra Brandreth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. While I welcome some of the measures announced today, the reality is that instability in the Middle East has a direct impact on the UK economy and on the price paid by British households. Can the Chancellor therefore outline what steps her department is taking to work across government to ensure a stable region, including boosting our defence spending? Will she finally commit to 3% spending this Parliament and working collaboratively towards reopening the Strait of Hormuz?
I do think it's a little bit rich for anyone in the party opposite to talk about the instability from the Middle East conflict, a conflict they wanted Britain to join in from day one, a conflict that our Prime Minister made the decision to keep Britain out of because that war was a mistake and it's having an impact on British businesses and British families. I'm proud to be the Chancellor that has overseen the biggest uplift in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We're spending £270 billion during the course of this Parliament, taking spending to £2.6 billion by April next year. The Conservatives said they'd get to 2.5% by the end of this Parliament. They had no paid-for plans to do so. We are achieving it 3 years early.
Naz Shah.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. First of all, can I congratulate the Chancellor on the announcement that she's made? We are very, very welcome. For people in Bradford West, the Great British Summer Savings Schemes, the GBSSS, will go down an absolute treat. Would she agree with me this will always also benefit the hospitality industry, which has been struggling for years in my constituency and across the country?
Well, we all listened to my honourable friend's response to the King's speech last week when we heard about the great restaurants in Bradford. And I'm pleased to say that children's meals in those restaurants will see their VAT fall from 20% to 5%. So all honourable members who are looking forward to a curry in Bradford can enjoy Mumtaz, Agraz and all the other great restaurants in her city.
Excellent. Ellie Chan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to start with the positives. So I know that care workers in my constituency of North Herefordshire will really welcome the increase in mileage rates. And I welcome the measures that the Chancellor has announced, which seem to be starting to tackle profit shifting, which is a key problem in terms of tax avoidance. However, does the Chancellor not recognise that struggling families need help year-round, not just short-term sticking plasters in the summer holidays? The Green Party is calling for free bus travels for everybody under 22 year-round. We're calling for free school meals for all children to help all families year-round. The cost of living crisis requires year-round action. This could be funded easily by taxing wealth fairly. Will she take that year-round bold action to tackle the cost of living crisis properly?
I thank the Honourable Lady for that question and her welcome for the changes around mileage rates and also profit shifting. Obviously not all parties in the House welcome that, and I appreciate the fact that hers does. But we are helping working people. The Renters' Rights Act is the biggest upgrade in rights to renters in a generation. The Employment Rights Act is the biggest upgrade in rights to working people for a generation. We've taken the national living wage and national minimum wage to their highest ever levels, and for working families getting rid the 30 hours childcare, the free breakfast clubs, the extension of free school meals, but also getting rid of the 2-child limit. All of that is putting money in the pockets of working people, and the measures that I've set out today on bus fares, on fuel duties, on VAT and hospitality and more in the statement today will give further help both in Herefordshire and around the country.
Dave Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The announcement today of the £120 million fund to support the UK ceramics industry will be so welcome in my part of Staffordshire. Armitage Shanks is often not considered in the same breath as ceramics, partly because of the excellent advocacy of the Stokies, of the members for Newcastle under Lyme and Amber Valley. But actually, ceramics goes much further than flatware, and the sanitary ware that comes out of Armitage Shanks is world class. But it is much, much, much more than that. It is the identity of that village, and it is an iconic British brand. The Chancellor's support for Armitage Shanks and the rest of the ceramics industry will go down so well, not just with those workers and the GMB workers who are part of that factory, but also with my community. So can I thank the Chancellor for her intervention?
Thank my honourable friend for that question, and he's absolutely right that ceramics play a life in so many parts of our economy, not just in great heritage businesses like Denby, who produce plates and other ceramics, but also, as my honourable gentleman has set out, and in sectors like defence and aerospace, where ceramics are absolutely crucial, and that's why I'm pleased to be able to back them further with the £120 million package today.
Joe Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The conflict in the Middle East is not the Chancellor's fault, but she has chosen this time to make it more expensive for my constituents to take a car from Fishbourne on the Isle of Wight to Portsmouth. Will she do the right thing and scrap the emissions trading scheme levy that she intends to bring in July of this year? It shouldn't only be Scottish Islands that are exempt.
Well, the measures that I've taken today will help people on the Isle of Wight. We've frozen fuel duty now for the 3rd time, compared to the plans we inherited from the previous government would have seen it go up. We're helping farmers with red diesel, we're helping the rail freight sector, and we are also supporting HGV drivers. And, of course, the Isle of Wight is a place where many people go on their summer holidays and enjoy wonderful days out, and so the costs of that will also be reduced, helping the sector in the Isle of Wight this summer.
Jim McMahon.
Can I thank the Chancellor for this important statement, not least of all because the previous government failed to act on HMRC mileage rates for the 14 years that they were in power, watching as motoring costs went up year after year and doing absolutely nothing for the self-employed and frontline workers like home care workers. It shows the power of a union like Unison and that we have a Chancellor who is willing to take the action needed to support working people. Can I ask her, ahead of the fuller review, will the backdating of these measures support both the self-employed and employed workers alike?
I want to pay tribute to my honourable friend who raised this in Treasury questions just a few weeks ago. I committed then to looking at this ahead of the next budget, but given the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, I thought it was right to bring those changes forward and increase for the first time since 2011 the mileage rate. And I can assure my honourable friend that for home care workers, for plumbers, for all those who use their car for work, we will increase the mileage rate by 10 pence, backdated to April 2026 for employed and self-employed workers alike.
Ms Savile Roberts.
People are very aware that President Trump's war with Iran is worsening the cost of living, but there are measures within the gift of the government, long-term measures which could improve heating costs for households. In North Wales and Merseyside, we pay the equivalent of £255 a year on standing charges. That compares with £160 for London. When will she be addressing this structural inequality in heating costs?
In the budget last year, I reduced energy bills by £150, and just a few weeks ago, I put in additional money to help people with the cost of heating oil. The issue around standing charges and those allocations is one for Desnes, but I will pass on her concerns to the relevant ministers.
Lee Ingham.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Chancellor for her statement today. For those of us who are really serious about buying British, building British and backing British, this is a really welcome announcement. And I know the Madam Deputy Speaker will also be interested to find out if the Chancellor could say a little bit more on how she believes this will help the British brickmaking sector.
I thank my honourable friend for that question and for always standing up for the people of Stafford, whether that is bringing a market back to the town or supporting the brickmaking sector. This government are investing £120 billion more in capital spending during the course of this Parliament compared with the plans that I inherited from the previous government. And I'm determined that as that money is spent, whether in defence, in energy, in transport or in building schools and hospitals, that money is spent here in Britain, creating good jobs, paying decent wages, supporting British industry and supporting British workers.
Sarah Bull.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Food inflation is forecast by the Food and Drink Federation to reach at least 9% by the end of this year. And energy costs are driving up this, along with a lot of the other anti-business policies this government is putting forward, including not incorporating food manufacturing into the industrial strategy. So when will this Chancellor realise that announcing things like capping supermarket prices of food is just like flower arranging whilst the roots of the flower is dying?
The honourable lady says that we should extend the industrial strategy. The previous government didn't even have an